Chapter 36-20. The supreme ancient immortal realm was gone. The coldness of the mortal life emperor ancestor was displayed to the extreme in this destruction. He naturally knew that Long Chen was fast. Thus, after he arrived, he destroyed it without a second word. Then, without a second word, he left immediately. Given his ability and speed, it wasn't difficult to accomplish all this. The key was that he had to be ruthless. In the myriad worlds, there was probably no one other than him who could do this. At that time, Long Chen was still cultivating in the 4th level of the Pagoda of Time. It was a slightly more crucial moment. Heavenly Yuan Immortal Sovereign. Faintly, he heard Heavenly Yuan Immortal Sovereign's call. Quickly save the supreme ancient immortal realm. Moreover, during this period of time, the 4th era's primordial ancestor gods were searching for the mortal life emperor ancestor. Hence, Long Chen instantly understood that the mortal life emperor ancestor must have gone to the supreme ancient immortal realm. Mortal life emperor ancestor. Long Chen ignored the supreme ancient immortal realm. He underestimated the craziness of the mortal life emperor ancestor. At least before this, the other ancestor gods wouldn't be able to do such a thing. Most probably, even divine ancestor Kitagarbha and the chaos whole ancestor wouldn't be able to do it. Long Chen. At that moment, Lingxi, who was not far away, turned pale. That was her world. She could clearly feel the danger she was facing now. Everyone, the mortal life emperor ancestor is in the supreme ancient immortal realm. Long Chen immediately told this matter to all the 4th era's primordial ancestor gods. He believed that after they heard this, they would know how urgent this matter was. Go over. They were originally tracking the mortal life emperor ancestor. Now that they knew the location, they quickly entered the death world. Long Chen also came to the death world from the Pagoda of Time. After that, he opened several gates to the supreme ancient immortal realm. Mortal life emperor ancestor. When the gates opened, Long Chen roared, trying to intimidate the mortal life emperor ancestor. About 8 4th era's primordial ancestor gods came in. At this crucial moment, they directly rushed out. At this moment, Lingxi, who was still in the Pagoda of Time, said to Long Chen, "The supreme ancient immortal realm has been destroyed." What? From the pain and hatred in Lingxi's voice, one could tell that this wasn't fake. The emperor ancestor appeared in the supreme ancient immortal realms because he wanted to destroy them. His ruthlessness and madness had exceeded everyone's expectations. The supreme ancient immortal realms were destroyed. Swoosh. At this moment, Long Chen and the 8 4th era primordial ancestor gods appeared in the surroundings of the supreme ancient immortal realms. What appeared before their eyes was a gigantic sphere. This sphere was formed from countless clouds of dust and was left behind after the supreme ancient immortal realms was destroyed. Maybe, it was once a part of the mountains and rivers, or even a part of the immortal clans of the supreme ancient immortal realms. But now all of it was dust. This sphere was very large and floated in the air. Casting one's gaze over, the once vast and beautiful supreme ancient immortal realms was no longer left. The bustling world that was filled with dreams and passion had now turned silent. Emperor Ancestor. Not only for Long Chen, when they saw this scene, the eyes of the primal chaos ancestor gods and the others instantly turned red. This was an intolerable and unimaginable hatred. In just an instant, all of them simply wanted nothing more than to tear the Emperor Ancestor into 1,000 pieces. If the Ancestor God Alliance still existed, the Emperor Ancestor could be considered to have committed a heinous crime. But even if the Ancestor God Alliance didn't exist, all Ancestor gods should have the most basic rule, and that was to not destroy the myriad worlds. However, the Emperor Ancestor has already used his own actions to break through this bottom line. He did something that no Ancestor god or any other living being in the world would be able to forgive. He destroyed the supreme ancient immortal realms and annihilated trillions of immortal races in the supreme ancient immortal realms. Countless souls roamed the world, crying as they stared at their former homes. When the 9 of them came here and saw this scene, maybe they still had some hope for the Emperor Ancestor. But from the looks of it now, there was only killing intent in their hearts. This was something unforgivable. I didn't expect that the Emperor Ancestor would really do such a thing. Among the Ancestor gods, he deserves to die the most. We must capture him no matter what. We can't allow him to continue causing trouble. Maybe, the methods we used earlier were simply too gentle. The eyes of each ancestor god were filled with rage. Honestly speaking, Long Chen's feelings for the supreme ancient immortal realms were deeper. He should be the one to be enraged. Everything before his eyes was so desolate. In the pagoda of time, Lingxi was in even more pain. She who hadn't shed tears for a very long time now had tears all over her face. She also had deep feelings for this world. These were feelings that originated from the origin source of the world, and also her own feelings. Luckily, there was Yang Yu, Yang Lingqing, the Dragon Emperor, Li Xuanji, and her children accompanying Lingxi. Before this, when the dragon attendants were killed, the rage and hatred in Long Chen's heart had long been accumulated to the extreme. Now that the supreme ancient immortal realms had been destroyed, he discovered that he was simply too lenient towards the ancestor gods of the Fourth Era who resisted him. He originally shouldn't have cared about the opinions of the ancestor gods of the myriad worlds. If he was more ruthless towards them, maybe such a tragedy wouldn't have occurred. This internal war must end. If not, there would be even more casualties. Now that he felt the weight of his responsibility, Long Chen suppressed the hatred and anger in his heart. He endured the pain in his heart and asked, "Where is the Emperor Ancestor?" "He left before we arrived. I just don't know which direction he went. The supreme ancient immortal realms has already been destroyed, but what we are more worried about is that he wouldn't spare the other worlds. Hence, we have to capture him as soon as possible." Long Chen was very clear about this point. The problem was, where was the Emperor Ancestor exactly? The myriad worlds were so vast. If the Emperor Ancestor wanted to hide, it would naturally be difficult to find him. Now, Long Chen could only take a gamble. He spoke. Given his current personality, after destroying the supreme ancient immortal realms, it would be very hard for him to stop. Among the many original grade worlds, the only two that don't have the protection of the ancestor gods of the Fourth Era are the supreme ancient immortal realms and the ancestral star. Now that the supreme ancient immortal realms are gone, I'm worried that he would act against the ancestral star. Hence, we have to send one or two ancestor gods over as soon as possible. The primal chaos ancestor god spoke. "It's best if 3 of you go over. If you discover him, you can imprison him. Now, even if we heavily injure him and imprison him, the Chaos Whole Ancestor and the others won't be able to say anything." Finally, the Primal Chaos Ancestor God, Primordial Chaos Ancestor God and Fortune Ancestor God directly went to the ancestral star and hid there, waiting for the Emperor Ancestor to descend. This time, Long Chen no longer underestimated the ruthlessness and madness of the Emperor Ancestor. He understood that he had to take more precautions than he had imagined. Maybe, the Emperor Ancestor would head over to the ancestral star. A mere supreme ancient immortal realms wouldn't be able to satisfy his crazy actions. Other than the other ancestor gods searching for traces of the Emperor Ancestor, there were 2 who stayed behind to accompany Long Chen in the supreme ancient immortal realms. The world source energy of the supreme ancient immortal realms wasn't destroyed, hence, there was still a possibility for the dead souls to be reborn. It was just that the number of dead souls was simply too great. Long Chen transformed into a gigantic Taiji life-form dragon. His 15-headed divine body stretched out and swam about in the clouds. Right now, Long Chen's divine body could already be considered extremely large. That jade-green flame gradually gushed out from Long Chen, sweeping up boundless smoke. Only the Primal War Ancestor and the Origin Soul Ancestor were left behind when they saw this scene. The jade-green flames had already filled the entire supreme ancient immortal realms. This place had already transformed into a world of flames. Within the boundless flames, numerous dead souls started to condense, forming flesh and blood. Even the birds and beasts were the same. Reviving the dead. He didn't miss a single one of them. Only those whose souls were shattered to the most severe degree would die completely. As for the others, they would regain the height of Shangmi. This was the miracle that Long Chen had created. For example, Heavenly Essence Immortal Sovereign. Because he was directly attacked by the Emperor Ancestor, Long Chen couldn't find his soul anymore. Luckily, the vast majority of them could be reborn. As expected of the world's savior. The Primal War Ancestor sighed. "Yup, I hope that this time around, I can capture that Emperor Ancestor and teach him a true lesson. Ancestor gods are simply too troublesome. Other than imprisoning them, there's simply no other way." As for imprisoning them, that was something they were the least afraid of. Chapter 36-21. Batches of immortal races from the supreme ancient immortal realms entered the dragon sacrificial continent. They naturally couldn't accept the destruction of their world and the fact that they had to survive in another world. Luckily, they had a certain level of yearning towards the dragon sacrificial continent. It could already be considered fortunate that they could be revived. Over here, there was also Lingxi to take care of them. If it wasn't for her, although many immortal races regained their bodies, their souls wouldn't be able to recover. It was at this moment that Lingxi brought new hope to the supreme ancient immortal realms. In the past, the dragon sacrificial continent was also destroyed and nothing was left. But now everyone, please take a look. The new dragon sacrificial continent is already the largest world in the myriad of worlds. One day, I will let the supreme ancient immortal realms return to the myriad of worlds. The most important thing is that although the supreme ancient immortal realms are no more, our immortal realms are still alive. It was precisely these words that allowed the immortal races of the supreme ancient immortal realms, who were immersed in sorrow and pain, to regain hope. They gained a deeper understanding of Lingxi and Long Chen. 3 days passed. There was still no news from the mortal life emperor ancestor. However, the news of the supreme ancient immortal realms being destroyed had already spread to the myriad of worlds. From now on, the 9 primordial ancestor gods who opposed Long Chen became devils in the myriad of worlds. They were the targets of disdain. When this news spread to their own worlds, for example the mortal life emperor region, many people felt their hair standing on end. For a time, the hearts of the people in the myriad of worlds were filled with trepidation. Right now, everyone was praying for Long Chen and the others to suppress the opposition as soon as possible, unify the myriad of worlds and establish a new order, allowing the myriad of worlds to enter an era of true peace. This was the long-cherished wish of everyone. It was precisely this long-cherished wish, the wish force of all living beings, and even more faith that allowed Long Chen to possess even greater power, allowing him to rapidly advance. This made him deeply understand that to him, the living beings of the myriad worlds were not insignificant, nor were they ants. Rather, it was the foundation of power. Water could carry a boat, but it could also capsize it. As for the mortal people emperor ancestor, he had already walked further and further down this path. His own allies probably didn't want to walk the same path as him anymore. At least when this news spread out, the chaotic whole sorcerer ancestor didn't do anything. Xueqi demon ancestor also said that he couldn't understand common people's emperor ancestor's stupid actions. He chose to stand on that side because he wanted peace. What common people's emperor ancestor was doing now was destroying worlds. He wanted to start a war. On this day, Long Chen exhausted all his strength and finally allowed more than 99% of the primordial celestial race to return to the human world and move to the dragon sacrificial continent. The remaining 1% disappeared for eternity, including the heavenly essence celestial venerate. Those were things that could not be undone. Even the souls of the dead were destroyed. They left together with the supreme ancient immortal realms. This matter had also spread throughout the myriad worlds. The identities of the destroyer and savior were really obvious. In the entire 10,000 worlds, even in the common people's emperor ancestor's common people's emperor region, everyone knew what to choose. Common people's emperor ancestor was despised by the people. Long Chen was already the person everyone expected. Naturally, if he could choose, Long Chen would naturally choose the intact supreme ancient immortal realms. After the calamity, people would only discover that he was someone truly worthy of trust. After returning to the dragon sacrificial continent and seeing that the primordial celestial race had already merged with the divine dragon race, Long Chen felt very gratified. It has been tough on you. Long Chen looked at the slightly haggard Lingxi. Just a little bit more. When I reach the primordial ancestor realm in the 4th era, they won't be bullied anymore. This isn't your fault. Right now, there's still no news of common people's emperor ancestor. It was very hard for Lingxi to hate someone. But now, she really wanted nothing more than to kill common people's emperor ancestor. Just when Long Chen wanted to say no, the primal chaos ancestor god told him that they discovered common people's emperor ancestor was near the ancestral planet, and he was about to meet up with the 3 ancestor gods. As expected, he couldn't control the madness in his heart. The choice of the myriad of lives stimulated him, causing him to want to create an even bigger storm. He wanted to make everyone fear him. After a series of choices, he chose the ancestral planet. This was because he knew that the ancestral planet was Lingxi's 2nd world. Although it wasn't an origin grade world, it was close. Everyone, let's head to the ancestral planet together. We must make him pay the price. Long Chen didn't go first. The other ancestor gods were actually all in the Death World, waiting for this moment. Long Chen left many Death World dragon gates around the ancestral planet. Within them, a total of 5 ancestor gods instantly charged out. They were in 5 different directions, directly sealing off common people's emperor ancestors' path of retreat. There was a total of 8 ancestor gods. The moment common people's emperor ancestor appeared, they surrounded him. All of them had cold expressions and their eyes were filled with hatred and rage. They had waited for this moment for too long. Common people's emperor ancestor. The 8 fourth-era ancestor gods gritted their teeth. Seeing such a lineup, common people's emperor ancestor panicked. He had guessed that this would happen, but after enduring for 3 days, he still chose the ancestral planet. You guys really made such a big scene for me, Yizichen said. Don't you guys find it laughable and shameful that I'm surrounded by so many people? Common people's emperor ancestor had an indifferent look on his face. He wanted to delay for time, and at the same time, he told the Chaos Whole ancestor and the others about what happened to him. Although he had a conflict of opinion with them because of what happened in the Supreme Ancient Immortal Realms, he believed that they wouldn't allow him to be controlled. If that was the case, they would lose a portion of their strength. Attack! The Chaos Whole ancestor god and the others couldn't be bothered to speak nonsense with him. Maybe common people's emperor ancestor himself didn't realize how intolerable his actions were. The 8 fourth-era ancestor gods attacked at the same time. Common people's emperor pagoda. Common people's emperor ancestor was shocked. He hurriedly took out the pagoda to protect himself, hoping to enter it. If that was the case, they would only be able to attack the pagoda if they wanted to. They wouldn't be able to injure common people's emperor ancestor. However, they definitely wouldn't destroy his world source energy. Hence, he would definitely be safe. Evil ghost. However, the original soul ancestor acted swiftly. They had already predicted that he would do this, so they used their mental attacks to trap mortal people's emperor ancestor in an illusion. The 8 fourth-era ancestor gods attacked at the same time, creating a huge scene. 8 types of laws instantly pressed down. Before mortal people's emperor ancestor could enter the mortal people's emperor pagoda, he was hit by 8 types of laws. Break! The primordial soul ancestor god controlled the 9-colored lotus, smashing the pagoda away. Do you all dare to destroy me? Common people's emperor ancestor laughed maniacally. Who? Just as he finished speaking, the 8 ancestor gods attacked at the same time. Just the law energy from the first few was enough to destroy common people's emperor ancestor's physical body, leaving only his world source energy. This was already considered a heavily injured state. Seal his world source energy. Next 8 layers of imprisonment. Let me go first. Among them, several ancestor gods first suppressed common people's emperor ancestor's world source energy, causing him to be unable to move. After that, the primordial battle ancestor came first. He used a heavy layer of imprisonment outside the world source energy. Next, the primordial soul ancestor used another layer of imprisonment. The more restrictions there were, the more the world source energy would be locked down. Above 5 layers, there was no need to control it at all. Common people's emperor ancestor's world source energy would be suppressed to the point where it couldn't move at all. It was like a defenseless person being locked up in a steel cage. However, they still used 8 layers of imprisonment to lock it down. At least within 10,000 years, common people's emperor ancestor alone wouldn't be able to break it. After all, 8 ancestor gods of the same level attacked at the same time. When Long Chen came to the ancestral star, what appeared in front of him wasn't common people's emperor ancestor, but a golden cocoon-like thing. Common people's emperor ancestor was captured. Thank you everyone. Long Chen temporarily put down the hatred in his heart. Today's situation was at least an explanation to the people of the 10,000 worlds and the immemorial celestial race. He also had an explanation for Lingxi. However, when he looked at the golden cocoon, he couldn't help but feel indignant. Long Chen was in a daze. What are you thinking about? Creation ancestor god came to his side and asked. Chapter 36:22. Hearing Long Chen's words, the ancestral gods were slightly taken aback. It wasn't that they thought it was inappropriate. On the contrary, they couldn't tolerate mortal people emperor ancestor. After all, he had broken the fundamental principles of the ancestral gods. They hadn't expected to have such a choice. But at this time, Great Dream Heart Ancestor and Nature Ancestor told Long Chen that because Mortal People Emperor Ancestor was controlled and imprisoned by them, Chaos Whole Ancestor and Xueqi Ancestor could no longer sit still and were heading towards the ancestral star. In addition, Xueqi Ancestor also told Long Chen that the 7 of them were already on their way. Among the 9 of them, Divine Ancestor Kitagarbha stayed in the All-Beings God realm and couldn't leave for 1,000 years. Mortal People Emperor Ancestor was trapped, so there were only 7 of them left. Compared to the 10 on Long Chen's side, they were actually quite weak. If they want to come over, we'll take Mortal People Emperor Ancestor away. Now that Long Chen's side had the upper hand and had finally captured Mortal People Emperor Ancestor, he naturally wouldn't let the tiger return to the mountain. Moreover, Mortal People Emperor Ancestor was so dangerous that it wasn't suitable for him to have freedom. They're probably coming over to negotiate or fight. It's not suitable near the ancestral star. Let's find a spacious place and wait for them. Primordial Chaos Ancestral Gods said. Okay. The group moved to a relatively spacious star region. There was no one around, so it couldn't be more suitable to welcome the challenges of the 9 Fourth Era Ancestral Gods. Because of their arrival, Long Chen also put aside his previous thoughts. Their lineup is getting smaller and smaller. If there are a few more, we can swallow them in one go and stabilize the myriad worlds, said Primordial Chaos Ancestral God. That's right. Including the fact that Xueqi Ancestor has turned to us, they actually only have 6 left, while we have 11. In a few days, if Long Chen has a breakthrough, it will be 12. 12 against 6. We can basically launch an all-out attack. 2 Fourth Era Ancestral Gods against 1 would basically be able to take them down. The reason why they hadn't made a move yet was because they were worried that 1 or 2 would escape. What they were most afraid of was that they would lose their bottom line like Mortal People Emperor Ancestor and destroy the world. Otherwise, it would already be the time for the final battle. No matter what, we can't return the Common People's Emperor Ancestor to them today. Long Chen didn't say a word and directly tossed Common People's Emperor Ancestor into the ruins of time. Time slowed down there, and if Common People's Emperor Ancestor could break the 8 seals, at least 1,000,000 years would have passed. Not long after, Great Dream Heart Ancestor and Nature Ancestor were the first 2 to return to the team. In the blink of an eye, Chaos Whole Ancestor and the other 6 arrived. Xueqi Demon Ancestor was among them, Bright Gold Ancestor, Devilish Silver Ancestor and others. The 7 of them were still very courageous and directly stepped forward. In the past, the Black Hole Witch Ancestor loved to be in the limelight, but now, he didn't say anything and seemed to be unwilling. After they arrived, there was an ancestral god among them. His name was Epic Tao Ancestor, and the world he controlled was the Epic Tao domain. It was extremely vast, even larger than the Chaos Whole Shaman realm. This Epic Tao Ancestor had the appearance of a white-haired old man. He had an aquiline nose and sword-like eyebrows. His divine body was tall and slender, and he had a thick world genesis energy. He was simply imposing even when he was not angry. It was said that the true strength of this Era Tao Ancestor was stronger than that of Sacred Ancestor Kitagarbha and Chaotic Whole Ancestor. He was born in the middle of the 4th Era and was one of the 2 or 3 strongest people in the universe. He usually kept a low profile, but in fact, he was one of the earliest people who decided to oppose Long Chen. He was one of the true candidates for the title of the strongest in the myriad worlds. Now that Divine Ancestor Kitagarbha and Emperor Ancestor Kitagarbha were gone, and Chaos Cave Ancestor was hiding in the back, Tao Ancestor Era stepped forward and said, "Release Emperor Ancestor Kitagarbha. Don't go too far. If you want to teach him a lesson, then teach him a lesson. Why take away his freedom?" They had already lost Sacred Ancestor Kitagarbha, and now they had also lost Ancestral Emperor. There was no way they could fight against Long Chen and the others. Long Chen spoke, "Senior Tao Ancestor Ji Yuan, it's not that I want to deprive him of his freedom. It's just that Emperor has already reached a state of madness. Everyone should be very clear about what happened in the myriad of worlds before this. The supreme ancient immortal realms was destroyed and trillions of lives were lost because of him. But today, he actually dared to come here to destroy our ancestral planet. Such a cruel and crazy ancestor god, if I don't restrict him, he would destroy the myriad of worlds sooner or later, including your Epic Tao domain. I believe that Sir definitely wouldn't be willing to see your Epic Tao domain destroyed, right?" Long Chen's words made sense, which was why he was confident. This time it was the Common People's Emperor Ancestor's fault, and no matter how he was punished, he couldn't blame anyone else. Tao ancestor Ji Yuan said, "Of course we know the mistakes that the common people's emperor ancestor has made. However, even if we want to punish him, it's not your turn. Hand him over and we will naturally imprison him. After all, he is one of us, it's not your turn to act." Long Chen laughed and said, "Tao ancestor Ji Yuan, it's precisely because he is one of you that I can't hand him over to you. After all, you are one of us. What if you release him? Given the common people's emperor ancestor's personality now, he is no longer worthy of freedom, not even worthy of being an ancestor god. In that case, you are going to use this method to kill our people. The common people's emperor ancestor won't be the first one, right?" All of their expressions were solemn and their gazes were cold. Long Chen shook his head and said, "That won't be the case. As long as you don't do something as crazy as the common people's emperor ancestor, we won't act recklessly." His reply was watertight. It wasn't targeted at anyone but one thing. On the other side, the bright gold ancestor laughed coldly. "Long Chen, you aren't the master of all worlds yet and you are already using your power as the master of all worlds. How majestic." The demon silver ancestor said, "That's right. Looking at how arrogant you are, you probably feel that victory is in your hands." The few of them laughed coldly and turned around to leave. They were clear about the situation and knew that they definitely wouldn't be able to bring the common people's emperor ancestor away from Long Chen's hands. Of course, to them, the common people's emperor ancestor was asking to die. Victory and defeat aren't decided yet. Isn't it too early to be happy? Long Chen, there are some things that you won't forget. When they were leaving, the Chaos Hole ancestor laughed devilishly. After saying this, he left right away. Long Chen nearly couldn't control himself. The Chaos Hole ancestor was right. He didn't forget that he was still the person Long Chen wanted to kill the most. Before this, the reason why Long Chen asked whether or not he could replace the ancestor god's soul was because he wanted to kill the Chaos Hole ancestor. Of course, based on what he said before, the common people's emperor ancestor had to die to clear this karma. He had already destroyed the foundations of all worlds. In the blink of an eye, the few ancestor gods left. Beside Long Chen, there were a total of 5 ancestor gods following them to monitor them and prevent them from causing trouble. Now was indeed the time where victory was in his hands and he definitely couldn't let them play any tricks. The one he had to be the most careful of was the Chaos Hole ancestor. Recently, he seemed to have changed into a different person. "Long Chen, you said that you want to replace the common people's emperor ancestor's soul and destroy him without destroying common people's emperor domain and the common people's god race." The original soul ancestor and the others walked over. "Is that too much?" Long Chen asked. "Of course not. Even if he has to die, the common people's emperor ancestor deserves to die. However, I am also thinking about that possibility," the original soul ancestor said. Everyone paid more attention to this point. Long Chen recalled that the Qiyu demon ancestor had once used the so-called heaven-defying fate-changing rope to destroy his ancestral soul. If he had that rope, it would not be impossible. Firstly, he could get rid of an expert from the other side. Secondly, he could gain an additional helper from the 4th era's ancestral god. Unfortunately, the Qiyu demon ancestor is dead and this clue is gone. Otherwise, there might really be a way. Long Chen said, "That rope is really weird. There are things in the world that are beyond our understanding. Let's search and maybe it really exists," the original soul ancestor said. Chapter 36-23. Dragon Sacrificial Continent. As the origin energy of Long Chen's world increased, the Dragon Sacrificial Continent was also constantly expanding. Hundreds of trillions of primordial immortal clans joined in, but it still didn't cause any pressure to the Dragon Sacrificial Continent. As Long Chen advanced, the current Dragon Sacrificial Continent was constantly advancing towards the Dragon Sacrificial Continent before the Second Era. Now, it had completely surpassed the origin stone cave of the Second Era. When Long Chen fully reached the 5th Era, or even stronger, fully reached the 4th Era, reaching the level of the Ancestor Dragon, the Dragon Sacrificial Continent would most likely be restored to its original state before the Second Era. However, Long Chen estimated that he still had to become a true primordial sacrificial dragon to complete the true skeleton of the Dragon Sacrificial Continent. Only then would the Dragon Sacrificial Continent undergo a certain degree of transformation, reaching a level that even the ancestor god of the 4th Era might not be able to destroy. Now, Even the Chaos Ancestor God and the others couldn't help but sigh when they saw such a world. To every Ancestor God, the world was their best work. They complemented the world and could even draw power from it. Hence, they were also envious of Long Chen. In the northern part of the dragon sacrificial continent, Long Chen divided a region and called it the Primordial Immortal Kingdom. This was the territory for the primordial immortal clans to live in, and it was also the place Lingxi often visited. Qin, do you think it's really possible for me to bring the primordial immortal realms back? Lingxi came from the primordial immortal kingdom. Even though some time had passed, she still felt sad. Of course you can. Didn't the dragon's sacrificial continent return? Although he didn't know how to do it for now, Long Chen understood that as long as the conditions were met, as long as Lingxi and the origin energy of the world still existed, giving birth to a world wasn't something difficult. Long Chen was undergoing this process. At that time, I will build the primordial immortal realms not far from the dragon's sacrificial continent, Lingxi said with hope. I will definitely help you, I won't let you down. Even though many years had passed, Lingxi was still nestled in his arms like a little girl. How are you planning to deal with common people's emperor ancestor? Long Chen replied, I'm not sure yet. Let's imprison him for now. If there's a way in the future, even if we can't make him pay the price, we'll make him repent completely. The nature of the ancestor god won't change. His existence is a latent danger to the myriad worlds, said Lingxi. In fact, Long Chen understood this as well. Lingxi was just being a little more direct. So, I'm just waiting to see if there's such a chance. If there is, it will definitely be used to deal with the black hole witch ancestor, right? That's right. The one he couldn't forgive the most was the great wizard ancestor. Over these years, Long Chen spent most of his time strengthening himself on the 4th floor of the Tower of Time. Of course, so did Lingxi. The two people were trying to break through to a higher realm together. Mo Xiaolang, Soyian, Kitten. For the ultimate unification of the infinite worlds, everyone wanted to contribute their strength. I've already obtained the inheritance of the 5 ancestor dragons. What's left is the prehistoric calamity dragon, the shadow dream dragon, the primordial sacrificial dragon, and everything from the first ancestor dragon. Among them, the shadow dream dragon was related to Li Xuanji. During this period, Li Xuanji had been responsible for cultivating the 3 children. She could give them some guidance in all aspects, especially in terms of temperament. Long Chen's 3 children had made rapid progress and had a bright future. Of course, they still couldn't compare with Long Chen. For the time being, the 3 world origins are prehistoric, psychedelic, and primordial. It's a pity that I don't have the help of the dragon attendants. I'd better wait until I'm safe and the 4th era's ancestor god can't be eliminated. Long Chen concentrated on condensing the 5th world origin of one of the world origins. Time flew by. In the black hole witch realm. Under the gloomy gray sky, endless gray fog surged like a giant snake, covering the world. In this area, there were countless skinny mountains that stretched on endlessly. The black hole witch race probably didn't expect that there were 6 ancestor gods in this mountain range. Moreover, they were all 4th era's ancestor gods. Xueqi demon ancestor, bright gold ancestor, devil silver ancestor, Eridao ancestor. It had been 5 months since the mortal people emperor ancestor was trapped, and they were all waiting here. We're not waiting anymore. Bright gold ancestor and devil silver ancestor looked at each other and suddenly said firmly. The other ancestor gods' gazes fell on them. Xueqi demon ancestor hurriedly said. Why not? Last time, the black hole witch race said that he would succeed soon. After he succeeds, Long Chen will definitely die. He has been preparing for such a long time, so he should be very confident. Bright gold ancestor said faintly, it doesn't matter. We have just come out and don't know much about the situation in the infinite worlds. We had some conflicts with Long Chen at the beginning, but it's not as deep as you think. Devil Silver Ancestor said, that's right. Moreover, Divine Ancestor Kitagarbha has been restrained recently, and the Mortal People Emperor Ancestor still did such a thing. We can't understand it. If you admit that the Mortal People Emperor Ancestor is right, then we can't say anything. As the saying goes, those who walk different paths cannot make plans together. That'll be it. Eridao Ancestor laughed and said, Are you sure you won't go down the same path as the Black Hole Ancestor and Saint Ancestor Kitagarbha? Blood Demon Ancestor also laughed and said, "They're both ancestor gods of the fourth epoch who were born at the end of the epoch. I was born in the middle of the epoch. If the two of them joined forces, they might not be a match for me. If I had fought the previous 2 times, that Long Chen wouldn't have survived until now. But at this time, the Black Hole Ancestor came out. Don't be impatient, Blood Demon Ancestor. Don't alert him." The Xueqi Demon Ancestor told Long Chen that the Chaotic Hole Wizard Ancestor seemed to have completed his plot and was now waiting for an opportunity to use it. However, no matter who asked him what the plot was, he refused to reveal it. The patience of the other 3 ancestral gods was basically reaching its limit. Last time, with the reminder of the Xueqi Demon Ancestor, Long Chen had already moved all the ancestral gods who had a good relationship with him to the Dragon Sacrificial Continent in case the Blood Demon Ancestor played the same trick again. Finally, on a certain day 8,000 years later, Long Chen created the 5th world genesis of time. He succeeded. Long Chen couldn't help but roar at the sky. He finally succeeded. 8,000 years of painstaking cultivation was for today's transcendence. Obviously, he was closer to the realm of the strongest experts in the myriad of worlds. When time had the 5th world of origin, it was only a matter of time before the other world origins had the 5th world origin. With the first experience and guidance, he believed that it wouldn't be long before he could fully reach the realm of the ancestral god of the 5th era. In the past 8,000 years, there was not only the first surprise. The second surprise was that Lingxi actually had the 6th world origin in the aspect of the White Lotus in about 5,000 years. But this was not the end. When Long Chen reached the realm of the ancestral god of the 5th era, she had actually reached the realm of the ancestral god of the 4th era in the aspect of the Dark Hell. The 2 world origins each had the 6th world origin. Lingxi was even more heaven-defying. She had a total of 12 world origins. Of course, it seemed that Long Chen had more. When Lingxi reached this level, her combat strength had actually surpassed that of the ordinary ancestral gods of the 4th era, such as the Primordial War Ancestor and the Bright Gold Ancestor. It was just that she was slightly lacking in experience. But it didn't matter. In terms of laws, Lingxi had basically grasped the laws of the 2 4th era ancestral gods and had a deep understanding of them. She would basically be able to be equivalent to the sum of the 2 4th era ancestral gods in a few days. When he saw Lingxi's appearance after success, her immortal qi filled the sky. At the same time, there was also the presence of cursed qi, making her seem transcendent. She even had a cold and terrifying temperament. This was Lingxi at her peak. At this time, your combat strength has definitely surpassed mine. If we fight at full strength, I probably won't be a match for you. After success, Long Chen embraced this peerless beauty. No matter how strong she was, in Long Chen's arms, she was just a weak little girl. It's all because of you. Besides, I'm already at my limit. You're the one who made me who I am. Moreover, I've already reached my limit, my peak. After all, I'm a creation ancestor god. From today onwards, I won't be able to make any progress other than controlling some new laws. As for your future, it's just the beginning, and there's still no end to it. In a few days, you'll leave me behind again. Lingxi wouldn't think that she was stronger than Long Chen just because she temporarily surpassed him in terms of strength. Come fight with me. I haven't fought a 4th era primordial ancestral god before. Moreover, it's a double 4th era primordial ancestral god, said Long Chen passionately. Fight. Lingxi was stunned. No matter what, she didn't want to fight with Long Chen. It was meaningless whether she won or lost. Moreover, Long Chen couldn't bear to fight her, so it wouldn't be of any help to him. I don't want to. Lingxi pouted and hurriedly shook her head. It's not up to you. Long Chen pounced on her. Not long after, 10,000 words were omitted here. Only when they were tired did the 2 of them lie down naked between heaven and earth, embracing each other. It turned out that the battle Long Chen mentioned was this kind of battle. Chen, can we have more children? Lingxi asked sweetly. Of course, I'm going to give birth to all the 10 ancestral dragons. Then we have to leave 5 for Sister Xuanji. Xuanji might only be able to have more after I find the world origin and origin dragon soul of Shadow Dream Charm Dragon. That was also Long Chen's goal. After a few days, Long Chen came out of the 4th floor of the Tower of Time. He told the 4th era's progenitor ancestral gods that he and Lingxi had reached a whole new realm. Very good, very good. The Chaos ancestral gods came to the Death Realm and then to the Dragon Sacrificial Continent. Except for 3 who were still watching over the Black Hole Sorcerer Realm, the rest were already there. The 7 ancestral gods gathered on the Dragon Sacrificial Continent and sized up Long Chen. We can finally heave a sigh of relief that you can reach your current realm. Now, we really have victory in our hands. That's right. It's fine if we include Long Chen, but the key is that even Miss Lingxi has reached such a level. She's really extraordinary. On our side, including the Xueqi demon ancestor, we have a total of 13 4th-era ancestral gods. On their side, with the bright gold ancestor and the devilish silver ancestor gone, there are only 4 left to deal with. We can be considered to have completely crushed them. At this point, everyone was actually waiting for this time. It was just that they were still in the Black Hole Sorcerer Realm, so it was not very convenient to make a move. They had to wait for them to come out. Chapter 36-25. What do you mean? Long Chen's meaning was naturally the common life emperor ancestor. Indeed, when one reached the final stage, sometimes it was not easy to grasp one's true combat strength. He fought against the Chaos Cave Shaman ancestor and Sacred Ancestor Karma before. When he fought against the Chaos Cave Shaman ancestor, he was suppressed. When he fought against Sacred Ancestor Karma, he could already somewhat resist. At the very least, he wouldn't die. And now, one of the world origins had 5 origins. What would the situation be like? Would he be able to truly contend against the primordial ancestor god of the 4th era? This was a question. However, if they fought against this ancestor god before them, they would all feel some trepidation and wouldn't truly fight to the death. This would allow Long Chen to sense his own shortcomings. If he fought against Lingxi, there was no need to even mention it. He wasn't even willing to act. I will bring the common life emperor ancestor into the eternal whirlpool. The 7 of you will help me guard the eternal whirlpool and not allow him to escape. I want to use him to practice and see how much of a difference there is between me and the primordial ancestor god of the 4th era. Isn't this a little risky? It wasn't that everyone didn't trust Long Chen. Rather, it was because the common life emperor ancestor originally wanted to kill him. If he was given a chance, he wouldn't hesitate to use any methods and wouldn't give up. It is indeed risky. However, there are 7 of you watching over him. Also, I really want to try. Also, for the grudge of the supreme ancient immortal realms, I want to personally go there and teach the common life emperor ancestor a lesson. It was impossible to forget the grudge of the supreme ancient immortal realms. That was also the anger in Lingxi's heart. Hence, Long Chen was thinking that for the sake of giving Lingxi an explanation, he had to meet the common life emperor ancestor. Sure. After everyone agreed, they entered the eternal whirlpool. I want to enter as well. Lingxi spoke from behind. Sure. The 9 of them directly entered the eternal whirlpool. This was a world of time. This was Long Chen's territory. He naturally could easily move the common life emperor ancestor here. The 7 elder gods, in addition to Lingxi, were scattered throughout the eternal maelstrom. As for Long Chen, he was roughly at the center of the eternal maelstrom. At this time, Long Chen brought the common life emperor ancestor, who had been imprisoned for 8 levels, over here. For the common life emperor ancestor, he was in the time ruins in an instant. I'll have to trouble you all to release him first. No problem. Out of the 8 ancestral gods who had sealed him, 7 of them were here. Each ancestral god easily removed their shackles, leaving only 1 layer of shackles. Forefather Emperor felt the change in pressure and was overjoyed. He thought that his companions had come to save him. Boom! He broke through the last layer of the seal. However, what he saw was the eternal whirlpool and Long Chen. Originally, when he saw Long Chen, he was delighted, and his eyes were filled with killing intent. However, the 8 powerful existences around him also posed a great threat to him. Long Chen, you imprisoned me, but now you let me out. What do you want? The common life emperor ancestor cleared his throat and said calmly. Long Chen went straight to the point. I'll give you a chance to kill me. Let's see if you can grasp it. You're too heavily injured, so I'll give you some time to recover. When you're ready, we'll attack. What? The common life emperor ancestor did not expect such a good thing. He found it hard to believe. But thinking about it carefully, since the other party could not kill him, what else could they do to him apart from shackling him? He was not afraid of anything. Since the other party was so foolish to send such an opportunity to him, why not seize it? Very good. The common life emperor ancestor began to recover. About 10 days later, he was full of energy. Although he knew that there were many fourth-era ancestor gods around, he did not care. Instead, he looked at Long Chen with a burning gaze. Looks like you've improved again. That's right. Very confident. That's right. Very good. Very good. The more confident the common life emperor ancestor was, the greater his chances. In the blink of an eye, the common life emperor pagoda appeared in his hand. The entire eternal vortex shone because of it. Common life emperor pagoda. The 10,000 level pagoda almost caused the eternal vortex to explode. The common life emperor ancestor was like an emperor. With the pagoda in his hand, his divine body was millions of feet tall as he crushed Long Chen. Just as Long Chen had said, this was his only chance to kill Long Chen. A chance bestowed upon him by the heavens. Humph. At this time, Long Chen changed before his eyes. He transformed from a human into a divine dragon, and a void universe dragon at that. The void universe dragon was a mysterious phantom that was boundlessly huge. The deep blue void universe dragon was no weaker than the common life emperor ancestor with billions of divine bodies. The ancestral dragon and the giant ancestral god. The same deep blue chains of time wrapped around the void universe dragon, giving the mysterious dragon of time a domineering and murderous aura. Today, Long Chen belonged purely to time. 1. The common life emperor ancestor attacked. The vast common life emperor pagoda carried the power of the origin of the 6 worlds and suppressed Long Chen. The common life emperor pagoda expanded countless times. In the past, the supreme ancient immortal realms were exterminated in the common life emperor pagoda like this. Its power was comparable to the attacks of the Chaos Cave Shaman ancestor and sacred ancestor Kitagarbha. Chapter 36-26. Although the battle with divine ancestor Kitagarbha looked as easy as this one, there was a huge difference to Long Chen. That was because divine ancestor Kitagarbha countered him. Against the common people's emperor ancestor, Long Chen didn't have much of a counter. He could wear out his attacks completely by relying on his own ability. After several clashes, Long Chen had a clearer understanding of his current level. He was already comparable to a primordial ancestor god of the 4th era. Even if he couldn't defeat the primordial ancestor god of the 4th era quickly, it would be very difficult for him to kill him alone. Moreover, as time passed, when he reached the primordial ancestor god of the 5th era in all other aspects, the primordial ancestor gods of the 4th era might no longer be a match for Long Chen. At that time, Long Chen wouldn't need to be afraid of them. Of course, at this moment, his attacks were easily resolved by Long Chen twice. The common people's emperor ancestor wouldn't give up so easily. Seems like you've improved a lot again. The common people's emperor ancestor's majestic voice rumbled in the eternal whirlpool. Under the tremors, many temporal changes were being destroyed. It's too easy to deal with you. Long Chen's void universe dragon was still swimming in the endless whirlpool. Humph, so what if that's the case? The supreme ancient immortal realms were still destroyed by me. The common people's emperor ancestor knew what Long Chen was angry about. As expected, the moment he said this, Long Chen's expression changed. Haha, don't always act like a savior. How laughable. Since you're the savior, have you saved the supreme ancient immortal realms? That's your woman's world, right? You can't even protect that. What qualifications do you have to be so arrogant? Long Chen, many things are destined. You think you can change everything, but you can't do anything. The common people's emperor ancestor placed the huge golden common people's emperor pagoda in front of him. When he spoke, he was actually preparing his final attack. At this moment, he had been preparing for a long time. As the sound of his voice faded, the law he was most confident in, the law of his emperor's Tao, was released in this world. DMO has fallen. Boom. In an instant, the common people's emperor ancestor merged into the golden common people's emperor pagoda. In the blink of an eye, the mortal people's emperor's pagoda grew to a boundless size. The 10,000-layer pagoda was clearly visible. Then, it became even more glorious and domineering. A face appeared in every layer of the pagoda, and those faces gradually walked out of the pagoda, even dividing the pagoda into 10,000 parts. Every part was transformed into a golden broadsword in the hands of the face. These were the world source of common people's ancestor emperor. Then, those faces slowly turned into the appearance of the common people ancestor emperors. They spread out and the 10,000 common people ancestor emperors surrounded Long Chen. Golden light shone brightly. The golden light was beautiful and majestic. It caused the entire eternal whirlpool to transform. When the 10,000 emperors descend, the heavens shall destroy the earth. Golden light flashed and exploded. The 10,000 common people's emperor ancestors formed a formation and attacked from all directions around Long Chen. The golden blades rose up and the power of laws swept, forming a golden blade formation. Numerous killing moves slashed down at this moment. You're dead. Common people's emperor ancestor was really confident. Danger. The hearts of the 7 ancestor gods trembled. This was the rule that ancestor common folk emperor had set for certain death. However, they were still very worried. Long Chen's actions this time were a bit risky for them. It was completely unnecessary. If Long Chen cultivates the other world sources to the 5th era ancestor god realm, then we won't have to worry about common people's emperor ancestor. The 7 ancestor gods were basically prepared to attack and break common people's emperor ancestor's attack. Lingxi was the same. She looked on nervously from the side, but she had no intention of helping. This was because from Long Chen's state, she could deduce that common people's emperor ancestor definitely wouldn't be able to kill Long Chen. Under such an extreme situation, in an instant, the great void universe dragon was tossing and turning in the eternal whirlpool. That quiet, beautiful, mysterious blue god dragon didn't seem to be affected at all. It continued to walk on the path of time, changing, controlling the trajectory of time and swimming in the river of time. All of a sudden, 10,000 emperor golden lights crossed space and slashed down. This was like the judgment of heaven and earth, the hatred of all beings. Common people's emperor ancestors' aura could destroy heaven and earth. Without a doubt, this was the most dangerous moment. But even at such a moment, the great void universe dragon was still relaxed. Source of time. This was the biggest time law creation that Long Chen had obtained in these 8,000 years. He could chase the source of time and cross the boundary of time to open the most ancient door. He could peek at the most basic primitive world, even an era that didn't even appear in the first era. Gate of origin, open. All of a sudden, there seemed to be a hole in the eternal whirlpool. Long Chen seemed to be stuck in that hole. Behind that hole was the most ancient world. As for Long Chen, the most ancient power of that world gathered around Long Chen, forming layers of light that instantly surrounded Long Chen. It was a mysterious power that felt a little moist. It was as if he had returned to his mother's body, warm, safe, and isolated from the rest of the world. Tens of thousands of golden lights slashed on the gate of origin. Hoo-hoo! There was no tearing sound. One could only see the golden lights being swallowed by Long Chen and the gate of origin. All of common people's emperor ancestors' power disappeared at this moment. Until common people's emperor ancestors' laws disappeared and Long Chen's gate of origin also disappeared. But when Long Chen appeared in front of common people's emperor ancestor unharmed, everyone was shocked. After all, he didn't counter common people's emperor ancestor but in a real battle, he easily made common people's emperor ancestor helpless. Common people's emperor ancestor, who was the most confident, was stunned. The eternal whirlpool slowly calmed down. You lost your last chance to kill me. Common people's emperor ancestor, from now on, you won't have any more chances. Long Chen said with deep meaning. Just now, common people's emperor ancestor was still arrogant. Now, he was totally stunned. In truth, he felt really helpless. Just like what Long Chen said, he had no way to kill Long Chen. He had lost all hope. Haha. Common people's emperor ancestor couldn't help but laugh. Very good, you succeeded. But so what? I'm the creation ancestor god. You still can't kill me. If you can't kill me, what can you do to me? He wasn't afraid. The identity of the creation ancestor god was a huge restriction to Long Chen. Long Chen naturally knew about this. Those people from the supreme ancient immortal domain died for nothing. If not, would you dare to kill people from my common people's emperor region? That can be considered your revenge. Even if common people's emperor ancestor lost, he still had a delighted look on his face. Just you wait. I have many ways to deal with you. Long Chen's goal had been achieved. What he needed to do now was to reseal common people's emperor ancestor and toss him into the ruins of time. After that, he would deal with the remaining creation ancestor gods. Everyone, let's attack together, Long Chen said to everyone. The 7 ancestor gods surrounded him. Just at this moment Lingxi said, Chen, wait. What's the matter? Long Chen asked. Lingxi pursed her lips. I also want to try. Also, I have to seek justice for the supreme ancient immortal race. In the past, I haven't fully recovered and couldn't protect them. But now, I want to let them know that I'm strong enough. Long Chen wasn't worried at all. He had a certain understanding of the current Lingxi. There was only one primordial ancestor god from the 4th era. Leaving aside common people's emperor ancestor, Lingxi could even deal with the chaos ancestor god. The current Lingxi was definitely one of the strongest in the myriad of worlds, and she even surpassed Long Chen. The only thing they needed to see was whether or not she had the courage to fight against the 4th era primordial ancestor god. What? Common people's emperor ancestor felt that this surprise came too suddenly. He couldn't kill Long Chen, but if he could kill Lingxi, it would be a huge gain. At the very least, Long Chen would go crazy. The key was that if he could kidnap her, that would be even better. As long as he could kidnap her, he would be able to escape today. Chapter 36-27. Very well, I will agree. Although he exhausted a lot of energy when fighting against Long Chen, he was still very emotional. He grabbed hold of this chance and directly agreed. After this battle, the 4th era's primordial ancestor basically had 10,000% confidence in Long Chen. Since Long Chen felt that there would be no problem, they naturally felt that there would be no problem. Hurry up, little girls. All of you can come and train. I welcome you all at any time. Ancestor Common People's Emperor couldn't help but laugh. He wasn't able to take down Long Chen because Long Chen had always been heaven-defying. As for Lingxi, she had never displayed her ability before the 4th era's primordial ancestor god. The supreme ancient immortal race in the supreme ancient immortal realms actually didn't perish, but the destruction of that world was too hard for Lingxi to accept. The supreme ancient immortal realms was simply too beautiful, and she really liked that world. To her, it was simply a treasure. Everything was destroyed by the ruthlessness of Ancestor Common People's Emperor. In the blink of an eye, Lingxi, who was covered in white mist, faced off against Ancestor Common People's Emperor. They stood in the eternal whirlpool while Long Chen retreated to the side. Honestly speaking, Long Chen was also very curious. He wanted to see what level she could reach exactly. To a man, being able to make his woman strong was also a huge sense of achievement. He had always been worried about Lingxi and wanted to spend a long time with her. Now that Lingxi had become the 4th era's primordial ancestor god, reaching the peak of the myriad of worlds, it was time to test it out. Can we start now? This was the only thing Lingxi said to Ancestor Common People's Emperor. It was very rare for the kind Lingxi to be so cold to others. Come, show me all you've got. Ancestor Common People's Emperor didn't care at all. Actually, he knew that Lingxi had most probably become the 4th era's primordial ancestor god. But he thought that she had just recovered to this extent, and there was no way for her to compare to him. Just as he finished speaking, Lingxi had already acted. Immortal mist filled the air. She seemed to be carrying the supreme ancient immortal realms with her. Right now, her aura dispersed, replacing the eternal whirlpool. However, in this immortal realms, the silhouettes of 2 gigantic constellations could be seen. These were none other than the Curse Star and Curse Star. Divine Curse Demon Realm. The 2 worlds were completely different, yet they were shockingly similar. In Lingxi's hand was the long sword formed from the world origin White Lotus. It was pure, natural and fragrant. However, the black abyss on her finger was simply a terrifying symbol. The 2 world origins occupied the left and right parts of Lingxi's body. World Motionless Curse. The first thing Lingxi used was a curse. It was a curse that had a similar function to Time Stop. However, for a curse to produce such an effect, it was different from Time Stop or Space Freeze. Common People's ancestor was smiling, but at that moment, his body froze. This vast power was totally at the 4th era's ancestor god level. It was no weaker than his own. Moreover, because it was a curse law, he had never heard of it before. He was at a huge disadvantage and was hit right away. But this was just the start. Next was Lingxi's crazy bombardment. Primal Calamity Curse. The The black hell ring left her slender finger and rose into the sky above common people's emperor ancestor. It instantly expanded and wrapped around him before shrinking. When the world unmoving curse was activated, the black hell ring had already wrapped around common people's emperor ancestor. Numerous spikes extended from the ring and stabbed deep into his body. The primal calamity curse was an intense pain curse. To the ancestor god, it was hard for him to experience pain. Even if his god body was destroyed, he wouldn't feel much pain. However, this primal calamity curse could allow him to return to his original state, the state of mortals. The flesh and blood of mortals were like countless spikes to the ancestor emperor. They pierced into his mortal body and caused him to be riddled with holes. Moreover, within the spikes, there were barbs. Common people's ancestor's expression changed. The two curses buffed his body and instantly he was in extreme pain. At the start, he didn't expect that Xueqi could be so strong. Actually, the 8 people present, including Long Chen, all felt somewhat fearful of such a lightning-fast attack. Fortunately, Xueqi was not their enemy. Her attack was simply too ferocious. She truly lived up to her reputation as the successor of the divine cursed demon ancestor. Break! Common people's ancestor raged and shouted. He gathered the overbearing emperor power in his body, and wanted to force the black hell and all the curses away. Million poison demon curse. Just at this moment, Xueqi attacked before he could. An even more terrifying curse. Above the black prison, millions of ghosts appeared. There were humans, beasts, and many other weird things. They surged into the body of the common people's emperor ancestor. Even though the common people's emperor ancestor was billions of feet tall, the curse entered his body and occupied every single spot. It was like his body was being transformed into a nest. Common people's ancestor's face turned black and his body was covered in a black mist. His entire body was occupied by the curse. With the 3 curses activating at the same time, there was no room for discussion. Looking at how angry Xueqi was, one could see that the battle wasn't over yet. Among the 3 curses, although common people's ancestor wouldn't die, he wouldn't be able to break free. Facing this pain was worse than death. To think that he thought that Long Chen couldn't do anything to him. Truthfully, now that Xueqi had reached such a level, the curses from the cursed demon ancestor would definitely make him regret it. For example, the primal calamity curse. Million poison demon curse. At the most painful moment, Xueqi's expression was cold. Celestial mist spread in her eyes and the curse energy around her disappeared. The celestial Tao covered her body. At this moment, she waved the white lotus and finally started to use the laws from the ancient unlimited world-purifying celestial ancestor. Selfless unlimited sword. In her small hand, the white lotus turned into a giant one. Within the blade, numerous snow-white lotuses appeared. They descended from the sky and created a beautiful celestial world. Within the lotuses, the power of laws swept the area. When the sword swept across, common people's ancestor was still trapped in the curse and couldn't move at all. South. One sword slashed and common people's ancestor was sliced into 2. Such a situation was already a heavy injury. The revenge of a woman, even the most gentle one, was terrifying. Unfortunately, common people's ancestor didn't understand that logic and was sliced into 2 at the waist. World-purifying celestial king sword. Until now, Xueqi didn't stop. Her series of attacks stunned everyone. Especially when the world-purifying celestial king sword slashed out. Probably no one wanted to be Xueqi's opponent anymore. World-purifying celestial king sword. 2 streaks of sword light chased up to the 2 halves of common people's ancestor's body. Impossible. Just as common people's ancestor was at his most shocked, the world-purifying celestial king sword slashed across. No matter what he was, the purifying power instantly wiped him out. The entire common people's ancestor was turned to dust. The key was that Xueqi's curse had seeped into his world source and tangled with it. In a short period of time, common people's ancestor wouldn't be able to break free from the pain of the curse. No. Maybe at this moment, common people's ancestor really regretted it. But it was useless. 1. Apart from a world source that was surrounded by black mist, common people's ancestor had disappeared. This meant that Xueqi used a domineering method to defeat common people's ancestor. Defeating and contending against were 2 different things. In this aspect, Xueqi's performance was even more heaven-defying than Long Chen. When she grew to her peak, she really couldn't be underestimated. In the end, no matter how much common people's ancestor collapsed, Lingxi didn't let him off. She placed a few more curses on his body and made him suffer slowly. Only when common people's ancestor was so frightened that he peed his pants did she stop. At this moment, she stretched her back like she had done something insignificant. She turned her head and said to everyone, "We should be able to lock him up again." Okay. The primal chaos ancestor god and the others hurriedly acted. As for common people's ancestor's screams, no one wanted to ignore him. The destruction of the supreme ancient immortal domain was something that he had no way to repay. But they all laughed. This battle proved that both Long Chen and Lingxi were much stronger than they had imagined. There was a really important matter. The new book had been finalized and it would be released in late November. At that time, there would be many events. After such a long period of silence, it was time for a storm to brew. The Dragon's Blood and the Dragon's Tail would also continue to be written and completed. Madman, he spent 3 years writing until here. Even if he started a new book, he didn't rest at all. The new book was a shocking work. His only goal was to reach a higher peak. Chapter 36-28. Common People's Emperor Ancestor was sealed back into the ruins of time. When everyone returned to the dragon's sacrificial continent, even someone as calm as the Chaos Ancestral God couldn't contain his excitement. For them, in fact, it was only 8 months. In the blink of an eye, Long Chen could already fight against the Fourth Era's Ancestor God head-on. In addition to Lingxi, who could defeat the Fourth Era's Primordial Ancestor God, their lineup had increased to 13 people. Now, we can already take the initiative to attack. As long as we find the right opportunity to lure the Great Shaman Ancestor, the past and future ancestors out of the Great Shaman world, there's a high chance that we'll be able to suppress all of them. That's right. Perhaps Demon Forefather Xueqi can think of a way to reach this step. In fact, Long Chen was quite confident in his heart. After all, the difference in strength between the two sides was too great. They were evenly matched from 9 to 10, but now they were behind by 4 to 13. Of course, if I can fully attain the Fifth Era's ancestral god realm, then I can obviously attain or even surpass Lingxi's level. If I act at that time, I will have a greater chance of success. But at that time, I still have to worry about the fish that slipped through the net and caused destruction to the infinite worlds. After all, they couldn't force him. If they did, something bad would happen. Just as they were thinking about how to safely lure the 4 Fourth Era's primordial ancestor gods out, they did not expect Xueqi Demon Patriarch to send them a message first. Long Chen, the black hole ancestor, wanted everyone to wait, but the blood demon ancestor couldn't wait any longer. He stealthily evaded the notice of the 3 elder gods watching over him and is moving by himself. Judging from the direction he is heading, he should be heading towards Elder God Lingxu. Xueqi's reminder was very useful to Long Chen and the others. Although Ancestor God Lingxu had hidden away in the dragon sacrificial continent a long time ago, the Lingxu realm still existed. If the blood demon ancestor couldn't find Ancestor God Lingxu, he would definitely vent his anger on the masses. At that time, the masses would suffer a calamity. Fortunately, Demon Ancestor Xueqi reminded him. At this moment, it could be said that the other party had taken the initiative to attack. Everyone, this is a good chance. If everything goes well, we can hide on his path to Elder God Lingxu and ambush him. We will lock him up and deal with him like how we dealt with Common People Emperor Ancestor. Then, we will have unintentionally swept away another obstacle. Long Chen said. He was still thinking about how to lure them out. Now that there was someone who was alone, it was perfect. Ancestor God Creation said, "It is indeed a great opportunity. However, we have to understand that the blood demon ancestor was born in the middle of the Fourth Era. He is much stronger than the Common People Emperor Ancestor. Moreover, we don't know what methods he has. Even if we surround him, he might be able to escape. What I fear the most. In such a situation, once they alerted the enemy, they would be forced into a corner. The myriad worlds will be in trouble." Long Chen was naturally aware of these problems as well. This time, the other party took the initiative to attack, so we can only accept the challenge. However, everyone really needs to pay attention to this point. Once there's an opportunity, we will naturally try our best to subdue the blood demon ancestor as quickly as possible. Only the 9 of us will take action. The three of them will have to stay there in case the remaining fourth epoch's primordial ancestor gods become suspicious and cause us trouble. After the discussion, the 9 of them, including Long Chen and Lingxi, headed towards the path from the Chaos Hole Wizard Realm to the Spirit Essence Star Ocean. They set up an ambush in a relatively spacious area, waiting for the Blood Demon Ancestor to take the bait. After arriving, the Chaos Ancestor God suggested, "Long Chen, why don't you and Miss Lingxi conserve your strength and not make a move first? If it really doesn't work, barring any accidents, you can join in. After all, we still have other opponents. Your current strength will be a huge surprise to them," the Chaos Ancestral God suggested after they arrived. "No problem. We'll see." If they could not make a move, of course they would. They hid in this star region. In fact, this was basically the only time to test whether the Xueqi Demon Ancestor was reliable. Before the Blood Demon Ancestor arrived, there was no answer. Long Chen and the others controlled a large area of the surrounding star region. After a while, they estimated that the Blood Demon Ancestor's speed should be fast. As expected. In the distant horizon, a dark red line of blood was flying toward them at a terrifying speed. More importantly, this line of blood was not very obvious. If not for the fact that they had been lying in wait here for a long time, they probably would not have appeared. "Everyone, get ready. The fish is here." The Chaos Ancestor God, the Creation Demon Ancestor, and the Destiny Star Ancestor were all here. Each of them was not weaker than the Blood Demon Ancestor. It was a thrilling moment. In an instant, the line of blood spread to the center of the encirclement of Long Chen and the others. Chaos 9-colored lotus. The Chaos Ancestor God did not say anything else and attacked. He gave the Blood Demon Ancestor a head-on blow. Chaos 9-colored lotus. Under the control of the Chaos Ancestor God, 9 types of chaos elements formed 9 huge lotuses. They formed 9 giant lotuses that instantly blocked the Blood Demon Ancestor's escape routes. This was the most effective attack for the Blood Demon Ancestor from the very beginning. Chaos Ancestor God. The Blood Demon Ancestor exclaimed. Of course, he recognized it instantly. The Chaos 9-colored lotus was the most obvious symbol of the Chaos Ancestor God. "Why are you here?" Before the Blood Demon Ancestor could finish his sentence, the 6 ancestor gods around him exploded. In an instant, 7 world origins were taken out at the same time and 7 types of nomological laws were displayed. The Chaos Ancestor God's chaos element was the fastest. The other nomological laws descended at almost the same time. Just as Long Chen had said, they absolutely could not give the other party any chance to escape. Complete control. You. When the sinister Blood Demon Ancestor saw the 7 ancestor gods attack at the same time, even Long Chen was nearby, he naturally knew what was going on. His whereabouts must have been leaked to Long Chen and the others, which was why they were intercepting him here. Damn it! Based on their confident gazes, they even know why I wanted to kidnap ancestor god Ling Su. There must be a traitor among us who told them this news. Who is it? In a short instant, the Blood Demon Ancestor's irascible mood flashed with such an intense thought. Furthermore, he quickly locked onto a candidate. The Chaotic Hole Ancestor's prediction was right. No wonder he refused to reveal his plan. He was worried that there was a traitor. We didn't believe it before, but the one who leaked the news was definitely him. Damn it, if I escape this time, I will definitely tear this person into pieces. Another violent thought flashed through his mind. When faced with so many attacks, the Blood Demon Ancestor's heart was the most clear. The most important thing for him to do was to escape this place. Otherwise, he would definitely end up the same as the Mortal People Emperor Ancestor. Sacred Blood Skeleton. In an instant, the Blood Demon Ancestor took out his world origin. It was a mystical item that was born in the middle of the 4th era. That mystical item appeared in his hand. It was actually a set of colorful skeleton. The skeleton wasn't big, roughly the size of a child's skeleton. However, it was very complete. The most important thing was that it was abnormally terrifying. On the colorful skeleton, fresh blood flowed within the skeleton like huge demonic insects rotating within. From afar, the sacred blood skeleton instantly attracted everyone's attention. It was like a sparkling gem crystal skeleton in the night sky that walked out from the primordial world. It had an ancient and heavy aura. Billions of blood prisons, intersecting worlds. The blood demon ancestor was the ancestor of blood, so he knew how to protect himself. It was as if he had turned incomparably small and rapidly merged with the sacred blood skeleton, receiving its protection. In the blink of an eye, the sacred blood skeleton flashed with countless blood-colored stars. Each star was like a world of death. It was a vast world of blood. Buzz buzz. Countless blood prisons stood between the ancestor gods and the blood demon ancestor. In an instant, the 7 ancestor gods' laws and the blood demon ancestor's defense clashed intensely. Sorry, I'll be leaving first. The blood demon ancestor's body burned with bright red flames. As the flames burned, his body also disappeared. Once the flames burned, he would probably disappear from this place. His method of escape. Chapter 36-29. It wasn't that the 7 ancestor gods weren't strong enough. It was just as Long Chen had expected. After all, it was normal for the ancestor god of the 4th epoch to have some tricks up his sleeves. If he escaped and alerted the enemy, it would be very troublesome. Thus, when the ancestor gods attacked, Long Chen told Lingxi to prepare the curse laws. World Motionless Curse. Lingxi was naturally prepared. Basically, the activation of the curse was similar to the attacks of the ancestor gods. It was just that the only law that passed through the billions of blood hells was used on the blood demon ancestor. This is... The blood demon great ancestor was about to laugh out loud. He was about to escape the encirclement when he suddenly realized that the flames on his body had stopped burning. In that instant, because he hadn't been able to escape, the 7 rules had broken through his defenses and instantly attacked his divine body. It would be weird if the blood demon ancestor could block the impact of the 7 laws. His flesh and blood body turned to dust under the impact. Only the saint blood skeleton was left. In reality, there were many cracks on it. Imprison him. They had already heavily injured him, so it wasn't difficult to imprison him. In that short instant, the 7 ancestor gods surrounded him. They added 7 layers of restrictions on the saint blood skeleton. Then, Lingxi added another layer. It was basically perfect. The operation this time went very smoothly. It went very smoothly. Soon, another powerful enemy was dealt with. This was an ancestor god who was born in the middle of the 4th epoch. Even if he was a fairy, he could kill Long Chen. Compared to the common people emperor ancestor, he wasn't on the same level. All of you actually ambushed me and imprisoned me. I didn't do anything to the 10,000 worlds. Long Chen, you still dare to say that you aren't the ruler of the 10,000 worlds? You attacked me so quickly. The blood demon ancestor roared in rage. No one bothered with him. Long Chen was prepared to throw him into the ruins of time to end everything. Then, he would go and deal with the epic Tao ancestor, the past and future ancestors, and the chaos whole ancestor. What a joke. Did all of you really think that it would be so easy to deal with me? Did all of you think that I wouldn't know? Who is the one who leaked the news that I'm going to make a move this time? Amidst the struggle, the blood demon ancestor still persisted. He did his best to destroy the wall and shouted, "Isn't it demon ancestor Xueqi?" He had long felt that there was something wrong with this fellow. It really was him. If you betray us, your fate will be even worse. The blood demon ancestor was laughing maniacally. Hearing his reminder, Long Chen could imagine that if the blood demon ancestor told the Eridao ancestor about what happened here, they would probably believe it, and the Xueqi demon ancestor would probably be in trouble. Demonic forefather Xueqi, leave the chaos whole wizard world. Ancestor nature, what's the situation at the chaotic whole wizard realm? When Long Chen was talking to the Xueqi demon forefather, there was no response for the time being. They acted quickly and did not have to worry about what happened to demon forefather Xueqi. Fortunately, there were still 3 4th-era primordial ancestor gods there. Long Chen, there seems to have been a battle within the great wizard ancestor of the chaotic whole, but it ended very quickly. The ancestor of nature's response was theirs. Just as he finished speaking, there seemed to be a situation over there. Demon forefather Xueqi was captured by the 3 of them. After destroying his flesh and blood body, only the origin of the world is left. Who knows, they might even destroy the origin of the world. Who would have thought that such a thing would happen on the other side in an instant? Long Chen was just feeling happy because he had gotten rid of the blood demon ancestor, but the real situation gave him a problem. Demon forefather Xueqi was instead controlled by the other party. When he said this news, everyone was shocked and silent. When the blood demon ancestor heard the news, he naturally laughed in surprise and said, "You can deal with the common people emperor ancestor, but not me. I know you have some ability, but you think too simply of us. Aren't you disrespecting your opponents?" Demon forefather Xueqi probably didn't expect that he would be discovered so quickly. After all, even if someone leaked the secret, it might not be him. Because demon forefather Xueqi was confident, Long Chen and the others were focused on stopping the blood demon ancestor and did not think too much about it. At this moment, Great Dream Heart ancestor said to Long Chen, "Long Chen, they asked for you to come over." Obviously, the other party wanted to negotiate. This was bad for Long Chen, because at this moment, the other party was already angry and would obviously be especially difficult to deal with. However, this was not a reason for him to be timid. "Let's go." The group chased the blood demon ancestor through the death world and quickly arrived at the Chaos Hole Shaman world. In the Chaos Hole Shaman world, the 12 people on Long Chen's side gathered together, carrying the blood demon ancestor. As for above the Chaos Hole Shaman world, not far from the Chaos Hole Shaman world, there was the Eridao ancestor who controlled the origin of the world, as well as the Chaos Hole Shaman ancestor and the past and future ancestors on both sides. The past and future ancestor was a peerless beauty, but she did not speak and was extremely mysterious. As for the Chaos Hole Shaman ancestor, it was as if he was not involved. He only smiled strangely and looked at all of this with confidence, as if he was watching a show. Both sides in terms of strength, they could indeed crush them. However, Long Chen was worried about two things. First, this was still near the Chaos Hole Shaman world, and there were trillions of Chaos Hole Shaman race lives here. Second, the plant demon ancestor was in their hands. Long Chen could not give up on the plant demon ancestor. Besides, the origin of the plant demon ancestor's world was also related to the lives of trillions of people. At this time, the Eridao ancestor said lightly, "Long Chen, let's get straight to the point. Things have come to this." Just then the Eridao ancestor agreed. The Kitagarbha divine ancestor, who had stayed in the divine realm for the past 1,000 years, had actually come here and joined the other party's team. This meant that the situation was different now. The two sides had not successfully resolved the conflict, but had reached the point of a life-and-death struggle. The Eridao ancestor continued, "Even the Kitagarbha divine ancestor is here. You also know very well the extent of the conflict between us. They said that they would not rest until one of them died. Let me be honest. Perhaps we have appeared in front of you today for the sake of our individual futures. From now on, perhaps each of us is the Emperor's ancestor. Do you understand what I mean?" Long Chen said, "What do you think? Just say it." The Eridao ancestor sneered and said straightforwardly, "Since the Kitagarbha divine ancestor doesn't even care about his reputation, it's obvious that the conflict between us is already irreconcilable. But we're all different from you. You won't kill the Creator God, but if it's not necessary, we will. After all, the Emperor's ancestor has already made a start. What I mean is, if our conversation doesn't work out, the first to die is the plant demon ancestor, his world, and the trillions of demons." He was threatening Long Chen with the life of the plant demon ancestor and this world. They were even more ruthless. Sure enough, they were going to walk the path of the Emperor's ancestor. Now that the two sides had evolved to this state, even Long Chen could not control it. Long Chen said, "In fact, there's no need to do this. If you don't target me, I won't target you either. If you really know your place, I won't bother to deal with you. We can mind our own business." Of course, this was just a temporary measure. The truth was that Long Chen did not trust them. They were now the cancer of the myriad worlds and were in danger at all times. Once there was a great power that surpassed them, Long Chen would still have to deal with them. "Do you think we're 3-year-olds? Do you still trust us when things are like this?" Divine Ancestor Kitagarbha laughed. "All right, then I'll just state my conditions." The Eridao ancestor didn't waste any time. "I can return the plant demon ancestor to you, but you have to return the blood demon ancestor and the Emperor's ancestor to us. 1 for 2? You're asking too much," Long Chen said. Of course, their demands were not excessive. In the past, they would have asked for Long Chen's life, but now they knew it was impossible. "Not at all. We want their lives, but you can only imprison the Emperor's ancestor and the blood demon ancestor." said the Era Dao ancestor. Long Chen looked at everyone. It seemed that they were back to square one. However, the plant demon ancestor could not be killed. From today onwards, the dragon blood god of war was free for 17k. From today onwards, the Lunatic Society's WeChat account, Feng Qingyang, would update the chapter link. There was a link to the new chapters, and the free original chapters would be sent to everyone's phones. You could read them anytime, anywhere. Chapter 3630. They wanted to kill the Xueqi demon forefather in exchange for the mortal people emperor ancestor and the blood demon forefather. Among them, the mortal people emperor ancestor was an existence that Long Chen couldn't forgive because he had destroyed the primordial immortal realm. His hatred for him was second only to the chaos hole shaman ancestor. Now, they wanted to return the two captives to them. Of course, they were unwilling. But, judging from the current situation, they were indeed threatening the Xueqi demon forefather's life. They were far enough away from Long Chen because they were worried that these heaven-defying opponents would suddenly launch a sneak attack and snatch the Xueqi demon forefather. They wouldn't stand here if they didn't have something on them. Long Chen, hurry up. We don't have the patience to wait for you. It's easy for the four of us to destroy the world's origin. Do you want to see if we can do what we say? If that's the case, there will be no room for reconciliation between us. Era Dao ancestor said in a cold voice. The Chaos Hole Shaman ancestor, the past and future ancestors, and divine ancestor Kitagarbha surrounded the Xueqi demon forefather. They were just waiting for Long Chen to give them an answer. In fact, Long Chen was discussing with the ancestor gods. It's indeed wrong to risk the Xueqi demon forefather's life. But if we let these two go, we'll go back to where we started. With our relationship in such a deadlock, it will only be more troublesome in the future. But when the Xueqi demon forefather was seen through and captured, we lost the initiative. Unless we can be as crazy and sinister as them. If we use our lives to threaten them, we won't be us anymore. Primordial Chaos Ancestor God's words basically made everything clear. So, this is a condition that we have to accept. We chose to compromise this time. It's best not to let them lead us by the nose next time. But Long Chen had a new idea. After the exchange, it will be time for both sides to face each other. But at that time, the Xueqi demon forefather and the mortal people emperor ancestor won't be able to fight. Our strength far exceeds theirs. Everyone, prepare yourselves. Since we won't rest until one of us is dead, we can take this opportunity to capture them all. Looking at the current situation, they are at a disadvantage. For their own benefits, they will be even crazier, especially since they let people like common people's emperor ancestor go back. So, everyone be prepared. Long Chen was prepared to carry out this ultimate battle after the exchange was successful. No problem. Everyone was ready. This time, he had to get to the bottom of this malignant tumor of the myriad worlds. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to have a moment of peace. Long Chen, you have to be careful. Although your current level of cultivation is different, their main target is still you, warned Ancestor God Creation. Understood. After agreeing, the other party's patience ran out. At this time, Long Chen said, I agree to this condition. Very good. A triumphant smile appeared on the faces of Dao Ancestor Ji Yuan and the others. Blood Demon Ancestor was right. Long Chen brought Common People Emperor Ancestor out. However, he was restricted by layers of seals. However, it wasn't a problem. It was really easy for Era Ancestor and the others to destroy them. Monster Forefather Xueqi was also imprisoned in the same way. The next step was naturally to hand over the captives. The atmosphere was a little heavy. Era Ancestor Dao Yuan said, We are all top ancestors of the myriad worlds. Since you have agreed to the exchange, it is best if you don't play any tricks. Okay, I will return Monster Forefather Xueqi to you. At this time, he let go of Monster Forefather Xueqi. Long Chen didn't want to play tricks at this juncture. That would only infuriate them. He wanted a chance after the exchange was completed. Go over. Long Chen and the others also let go of Common People Emperor Ancestor and Blood Demon Ancestor. Both sides. Although the captives were imprisoned, they still had some ability to move. This was especially so for Monster Forefather Xueqi. Although he was heavily injured, He wasn't imprisoned by many levels. He was basically heading towards Long Chen at a quick speed. Just as he crossed paths with Common People Emperor Ancestor and the others, Primal Chaos Ancestor God charged forward and brought monster forefather Xueqi into his god country. At this moment, it meant that Long Chen's side was no longer a threat. He was in their hands. Attack! Actually, he was just a little slower. Epic Tao Ancestor had already taken away Common People Emperor Ancestor and Blood Demon Ancestor. Both sides had completed the exchange. Long Chen and the others had 12, while the other side only had 4. Basically, they had surrounded them and attacked instantly. Even Long Chen himself was part of it. They were waiting for this chance to surround and attack. If it was successful, they would finish them off in one go. From then on, there would be no more peace in the 10,000 worlds. They would first be imprisoned, and when Long Chen was completely above them, or even when he became the ancestor god of the Third Era, he would be able to easily suppress them. Then they would be released. Of course, from the start, Long Chen knew that it would be very difficult to complete this step. This was because the other side would definitely expect them to attack at this time. They would definitely be on guard. Time Origin. World Cleansing Immortal King Sword. Together with Lingxi, he charged towards the Black Hole Sorcerer Ancestor. Chaos Hole Ancestor wasn't considered strong amongst the other side. This was especially so for Lingxi, who had even added a curse to her attack. 2-pronged attacks. The others basically attacked at the same time. Some of the other side even faced 4 attacks directly, such as Tao Ancestor Era. After all, he had been in the limelight several times. At the critical moment. At this moment, the past and future ancestor, who had always been at the back of their team and was also the most unfathomable to everyone, actually attacked at this time. Or rather, she had been preparing for a long time. It was hard to imagine that such a beauty would actually fight on their side without saying a word. She waved her hand gently, and a wave of power from time actually surrounded the 4 of them. The power of time was like a ripple or a lake that gently enveloped them, taking effect before everyone's attacks took effect. Swoosh! The 4 of them instantly disappeared, as if they had never existed, vanishing without a trace. Boom! The chaotic nomological attacks all bombarded empty space. Countless passageways were opened, causing a huge stretch of the starry sky to shatter. As expected, they're all ready. That past and future ancestor actually used a nomological law similar to the nomological law of time. They've long been prepared to escape after the transaction is completed. Everyone fell silent. At this time, they had to calm down to straighten things out. Everyone stared at Long Chen. After all, Long Chen should be the most familiar with the nomological law of time. It's not just the nomological law of time, but something else. Otherwise, I wouldn't have let her leave so easily. What puzzled Long Chen was the nomological law of the past and future ancestor. What is it? It was just a glimpse, so it was hard to be sure. After asking everyone, it seemed like they didn't have a deep understanding of the past and future ancestor. Let's not care about the matter of the past and future ancestor for now. The key is that the 6 of them have escaped, said the Chaos Ancestor God. Given their personalities and the current situation, when the Common People Emperor Ancestor tells them that Long Chen can fight them head-on, they will probably be anxious. The infinite worlds are so big, and it won't be easy to find them if we hide. We have to deal with them as soon as possible. But with the past and future ancestors around, we have to find them, surround them, and imprison them. It really won't be easy. Perhaps the first thing we need to do is deal with the past and future ancestors. They let the Xueqi ancestor out. I'm sorry everyone, I've caused trouble for all of you. The Xueqi ancestor was very apologetic. Our biggest advantage is that we have 13 people, and they only have 6. No matter what, it's 2 against 1. If we fight head-on, they won't be our match. We need the most effective method to deal with them. But what was that method? Long Chen had a bad feeling. Chapter 36-31. Long Chen. At that moment, the voice boomed throughout the infinite realms. The voice was ancient, solemn, and dignified. It clearly came from the Era Tao ancestor. To be able to transmit his voice to the infinite realms and surround all living beings, even tiny insects, was only the 4th Era's ancestor god. From this moment on, the six of us officially declare war on you and the infinite realms. The Era Dao ancestor's voice reverberated throughout the infinite realms. It set off a huge rumble. The infinite realms that had been silent for a period of time flared up. This time, under their control, the entire infinite realms were participating. The Era Dao ancestor's voice reverberated throughout the infinite realms. Even his appearance was revealed in the clouds, mountains, rivers, and even the cosmos. Long Chen and the others were naturally the first to hear it. However, the most important thing was the Era Dao ancestor's words. It was one thing for him to declare war on Long Chen. After all, that was what they had been doing. But the key was that they had added the words to the infinite realms. That was different. At first, they had wanted to unify the infinite realms, including all the ancestor gods and all the living beings, to deal with Long Chen together. At that time, they had still cared about public opinion and what the living beings and the gods and demons thought of them. But this time, they had separated themselves from the infinite realms and were enemies with them. According to their intentions, the entire infinite realms were their enemies. In that case, the infinite realms, the living beings, the gods and the ancestor gods, were all insignificant to them. What they wanted was victory in the battle against Long Chen. This meant that each of them had become the ancestor emperors of all living beings. In order to achieve this goal, they had transformed into devils and would do anything to achieve it. They would no longer sacrifice the Qiyu demon ancestor in exchange for the hearts of the people. The six of them had formed a group of evil demons. At the very beginning it had been them. Demon forefather Xueqi, ancestor luminous gold, and the others had joined later on. They are traitors who refused to accept Long Chen. They could have just declared war on Long Chen, but why did they have to declare war on the infinite realms? We are just lowly beings. They have no conflict with us, so why are they targeting us? Have they all gone mad? This behavior is no different from transforming into a devil. What's the difference between him and the primeval troll of the past? How could this be? What do they want to do? In the blink of an eye, everyone was caught in a state of internal struggle, discussion, and even fear. Long Chen's side was indeed strong, but if the other party hid in the dark instead of facing them head-on, they would surely cause unimaginable casualties to the infinite worlds. Long Chen. Another voice rang out, echoing throughout the infinite worlds. This voice was even more domineering, and contained a hint of complacency and madness. He laughed maniacally sadly, "You don't have the guts to kill me. That's right. I'm the Everlife ancestor. I was the one who destroyed the supreme ancient immortal realms. So what? I'm still not dead. And from today onwards, there will be a world that will walk on the same path as the supreme ancient immortal realms after a period of time." That's right. The blood demon ancestor's voice and ferocious expression kept changing in the infinite realms. The meaning is clear. We will destroy a world every once in a while. Even their ancestor god, none of them will be able to survive. We will create tragedies one by one, and only when two situations occur will we stop. The blood demon ancestor laughed maniacally. Their madness and malevolence seemed to have finally erupted. As Long Chen and the others listened, all of them fell silent. An unprecedented challenge had already appeared in front of them. The few tumors of the infinite worlds had truly grown into huge poisons that were spreading across the entire world. The Everlife ancestor continued. The first situation is simple. If you, Long Chen, wipe us out, we will naturally stop. But you can't do it at all. Haha. Just like how we left successfully today, you can forget about finding us in the infinite worlds. If it was possible, Long Chen naturally wanted to kill them. But from this point of view, the second situation was their condition. As expected, the epic Dao ancestor said, the second situation is even simpler. That is, you, Long Chen, will be like the Qiyu demon ancestor and commit suicide to apologize to the world. You forced us into the situation and forced us to a dead end. As long as you die, we won't have to struggle anymore. Naturally, we will return to our own worlds and rebuild the just and fair ancestor god alliance to rule over the infinite worlds. As long as you commit suicide and die, we will instantly stop. Of course, if you don't commit suicide and can't control us, then it's simple. The 10,000 worlds will be destroyed one by one. Until there are 10,000 worlds. Until there are trillions of gods and demons dead. We don't want the infinite worlds to reach that state. So, how many people will die and how many worlds will be destroyed will depend on your resolve. Long Chen. Their words were crazy and cold. They had lost their demands on themselves and turned into demons. Compared to before, there was a huge change. Although they were speaking to the infinite worlds, they had hidden their location. At this time, it was still impossible to find them. Today, in order to prove that we aren't bluffing, we will immediately show Long Chen and all the living beings of the infinite worlds our first gift. We will destroy the first world. The speed at which they spoke was extremely fast, one after another, shocking the 10,000 worlds again and again. There are 63 trillion living beings here. Every one of them is looking up at the sky. Like everyone else, they are also wondering if the first world to be destroyed will be them. They are the floating god realm. When the last word rang out, there was a tremor, and an explosion came from the depths of the distant starry sky. That was the sound of a world being destroyed. The floating god realm was destroyed. Long Chen naturally remembered that world. Actually, when they said they were going to destroy the first world, Long Chen was already very anxious. They had given him a huge problem that was difficult to solve. He didn't know which world they were going to destroy. But this declaration of war, they were definitely not trying to gain something without risking anything, and it was definitely not a joke. When the word floating appeared, Long Chen and the others had already entered the death world. They opened up numerous world gates and quickly found the floating god realm. The group of them charged out. Beat it to death. At this point, they couldn't be polite at all. But when they appeared, they were stunned. The floating god realm was undamaged. It was still here, and there wasn't a single ancestor god around. The living beings within were scared silly. Of course, everyone knew the reason why they were here. They had lied to themselves. They said that the floating god realm was to buy time for themselves. Sorry, I said it wrong. This world is called the Builder Tree, haha. At the same time as the sound of the world being destroyed, the common people's ancestor emperor laughed loudly. Builder Tree. A place that Long Chen was extremely familiar with. Xueqi's hometown. A place that Kitten had paid a lot of attention to. When Long Chen and the others moved to the Builder Tree, the ancient tree in space had already been completely destroyed. In truth, they had killed the ancestor god, causing all living beings in the world to be destroyed. The ancestor god was destroyed. They were for real. Looking at the world in front of them, the Builder Tree Saint Ancestor, the Builder Tree God race, and the Phoenix race had all been turned to dust. Long Chen's voice was hoarse. Very good, he could clearly see the destruction of the entire world. As they had been tricked into going to another world, they were delayed. By the time they arrived, they had already destroyed the Builder Tree and escaped. In an instant, when the news of the Builder Tree being destroyed and the deaths of countless living beings spread across the 10,000 worlds, most people cried. Some felt sorrow. Some felt fear. It was as if the future had fallen into a swamp. In the future, they were destined to be afraid. Destined to be afraid. Unless 1. Long Chen killed this group of terrifying madmen, or 2. Long Chen committed suicide. In the end, they were still targeting Long Chen. Or if Long Chen committed suicide, they would not be so crazy. At this moment, it seemed to be the voice of the chaotic whole ancestor. Long Chen, think about it. We are all at the level of the fourth era's ancestor god. We can't kill you, and you can't kill us. The only way is for you to commit suicide. Now, you are very honored. The entire 10,000 worlds and countless gods and demons are waiting for you to die. I think you will not disappoint them. Naturally, you are now. So, before the next world is destroyed, you have to be prepared. Otherwise, so many gods and demons will be destroyed forever because of you. We have tentatively decided that the next world will be destroyed at this moment in 10 days. You still have 10 days. Think about it carefully. Is your life more important or the lives of the 10,000 worlds more important? Everyone, follow Feng Qingyang's WeChat. In a few days, there will be some activities here, such as soliciting new books, supporting roles, etc. Chapter 36-32. They had destroyed the ancestor gods. If they did not destroy the world origin, the living beings still had some hope. Once the world origin was destroyed, all living beings would have no hope of rebirth. That was the case with the Builder Tree. But when the ancestor gods came to where the Builder Tree had once been, they saw the world that no longer existed, and the pressure and threats from the other party. Such a situation, such an outcome, had undoubtedly crossed the bottom line of all the ancestor gods present. To Long Chen and the others, the 6 existences had already gone completely mad and had lost their humanity. They were using the most sinister methods to engage in the most shameless of struggles. Such opponents were naturally the most difficult to deal with. They wanted to force Long Chen to commit suicide, and turn the target of their coercion into the living beings of the infinite worlds. Such methods are utterly shameless. They are using the gods and demons who have killed all living beings as weapons. Today, they had destroyed the Builder Tree. That was their sin. Now, the gods and demons of the myriad worlds hated them. However, as time passed, the world will be destroyed, and the gods and demons of the myriad worlds will always be afraid and panicking. If we can't deal with them again and again, then in the end, the gods and demons will gradually have the thought of making Long Chen commit suicide in their fear. In the end, the person most afraid would become Long Chen. When people were terrified to the extreme, they would often lose their reason and even lose their sense of right and wrong. After all, compared to their own survival, right and wrong were not very important. Long Chen, you must not let them scare you. All I can say is that without you, they will be even more lawless, and the infinite worlds will have no future, Destiny Star Ancestor hurriedly said. They all knew that the person who would bear the greatest pressure from the shameless methods of the other party was Long Chen. To Long Chen, the most difficult thing to bear was the survival of all living beings in the infinite worlds. In every world, there were hundreds of trillions of living beings. They had loved ones, emotions, desires, dreams, pursuits, and thoughts. They had the right to live, and they should not die. They were innocent. The level of an ancestor god is too transcendent. They can destroy worlds at will. This is not a good thing. In such a world, the gods and demons basically have no right to live. Long Chen was deep in thought. It was impossible for him not to be angry at this moment. At the start, he only hated the chaotic whole ancestor and the common people's emperor ancestor. However, now that the Builder Tree had been destroyed and they were shouting crazily in front of him, Long Chen hated all 6 of them. It was an unforgettable hatred. What Long Chen was thinking about the most right now was how to kill the 6 of them without destroying their world. Now, the elder gods were worried about Long Chen. Lingxi understood him even better. He also had feelings for the Builder Tree's sacred tree. He had once walked in this world and was very familiar with every blade of grass and tree here. He was very familiar with the Builder Tree divine race and the Phoenix race. But now, in this world, so many common people were completely shattered in front of his eyes. A blood feud. That hatred and murderous intent flowed through Long Chen's body like a tide. It kept on surging, almost squeezing his body to the point of bursting. In an instant, it engulfed the entire world. He had to find them and kill them. The creator gods, the source of the world. It was difficult to find them. Revenge was even more difficult. After all, the creator gods couldn't die. What Long Chen had to bear now was not just personal hatred. Since the other party is shameless, heartless, and has broken the first principle of the coexistence of all worlds, then what we have to choose is not to compromise, but to make them pay a heavy price. Yes. For the time being, the ancestor gods of all worlds were actually angry. They basically wouldn't support the 6 anymore. After all, what the 6 of them had done was simply unforgivable by any ancestor god. Their world could be destroyed at any time. For the time being, there's nothing for everyone to do. Please stay on the dragon sacrificial continent. As for killing and intercepting them, that's the task of the 10 of us, Long Chen explained. But immediately after, he thought of something and said, each of you has your own world. I think everyone understands how to communicate with your own people. We must not let them lose hope, let alone fear. As long as we survive this calamity, all worlds will definitely have a long period of peace. When that time comes, I'm afraid that will be the true Genesis era. Yes. They were the most suitable people to stabilize the hearts of the people. Long Chen thought it through. It was impossible to eliminate these 6 malignant tumors without casualties. Now that the ancestor gods of all worlds were here, even if the world was destroyed, Long Chen could revive most of them. This number of casualties could basically be reduced to a minimum. Long Chen didn't expect to deal with them immediately. However, he had set a goal for himself. At least before the other party destroyed 3 worlds, he had to accomplish it. He couldn't drag it out and let all worlds fall into a vortex of fear. Long Chen. Everyone looked at Long Chen. 10 days, the next destroyed world. 10 days. On the 4th floor of the Tower of Time, it was 100,000 days. That was about 270 years. For the current Long Chen, this bit of time was only enough for him to cultivate. Even a single instant would not be enough for his next world essence to have a 5th world essence. Next, all of you will try your best to search for their traces in all worlds. Once you find them, inform me immediately. Once there's anything, inform me immediately. There must be a way to deal with them. Tell me immediately. This was Long Chen's decision. Now, including the Xueqi demon ancestor, they had 13 experts. Lingxi was equivalent to an expert in the middle of the 4th era. In the future, she would definitely be stronger after she became proficient. She could be called the number 1 in all worlds. Perhaps Lingxi would soon have a way to restrict the ancestors of the past and future. In terms of strength, they were like lions, while the 6 of them were like hyenas swimming in the grassland. In a head-on attack, hyenas were definitely no match for lions. However, hyenas hid in the grassland and wandered everywhere. It wouldn't be easy for lions to find them. In this team, Long Chen's current strength wasn't outstanding. If he joined them, there wouldn't be much change. What he could think of, the other ancestor gods of the 4th era could also think of. Therefore, he knew what he had to do. Seize the time and become stronger. Chapter 36-33. His heart of slaughter burned fiercely in his chest. Today, the killing intent of all living beings in the myriad worlds was concentrated on Long Chen. He seemed to have an outline in his heart, and he had a deeper understanding of the true path of slaughter. Vaguely, he soon found the path to condense the origin of the 5th world of slaughter. The origin of a world was related to one's understanding of the laws in one's heart. Little Shi, I'll leave the escape method of the past and future ancestors to you and the primordial chaos ancestor god. The primordial chaos ancestor god was proficient in the Tao of primordial chaos, so they could break it. As for the Genesis Spirit Beast and the Destiny Star Beast, they only needed to fight a few more times. They would probably have some ideas after exchanging a few blows. Focus on improving yourself. From today onward, Lingxi would follow the 11 ancestor gods on their expedition. Okay. They split up. The ancestor gods were responsible for appeasing the gods and demons. Among them were the powerful 5th era ancestor gods, such as Pangu and Hongjun. Dozens of them gathered together, and they were a force to be reckoned with. They might be of help at any time. Now he was fully armed. As for Long Chen, he made a decision that the Chaos Whole ancestor and the others couldn't understand. He used the short 10 days to cultivate. They split up. At a certain place in the myriad worlds. In a hidden location. 6 figures were hidden here. 5 of them were surrounding one person, and the one in the middle was the chaotic whole wizard ancestor. The other 5 people had respectful expressions on their faces. The chaos whole ancestor was the weakest among them. If Long Chen and the others saw this scene, they would indeed find it hard to understand. The chaos whole shaman clan seems to have summoned all the ancestor gods to the dragon sacrificial continent. Long Chen has the ability to resurrect the dead. In that case, our plan of massacring 10,000 worlds doesn't seem that shocking to them. They didn't seem to know the true identity of the Chaos Whole ancestor, but they were still respectful. It was hard to understand. At this time, the great wizard ancestor revealed a strange smile and said, "That's not necessarily the case. He will be anxious as the worlds are destroyed one by one. Moreover, we don't expect Long Chen to really commit suicide. No matter how great the pressure from the myriad worlds is, suicide is still a wrong move. We still have to destroy him." Everyone was puzzled. Dao ancestor Ji Yuan said, "That's unlikely. Their overall strength is so much weaker than theirs. Long Chen has already reached a level where he can fight us head-on. How are we supposed to kill him?" The black hole witch ancestor smiled mysteriously. He said, "We also need time. Don't worry, everyone. When the time comes, it will naturally be done. Just watch and see." He was a god-fiend sacred lord. Perhaps, after waking up from his slumber, he needed time to gradually return to his former state. Common People Emperor Ancestor asked, "Then, what should we do now? Destroy a world every now and then flee?" "That's right," said the Shaman Ancestor. "That's it." Although everyone was still confused, the Shaman Ancestor didn't seem to want to tell them everything, so they could only continue guessing and executing. At least for now, the pressure was on Long Chen. They could almost see hope. "There's one more thing we need to do," said the Shaman Ancestor. "What is it?" The Shaman Ancestor's expression was sinister. "Some people want to cut ties with us and stay out of this, but it won't be so easy. Traitors have to pay a heavy price. Until now, we have announced to the myriad worlds that we destroyed the Builder Tree, but they still haven't contacted us. If they return, it means that they don't care about us. So, we have to destroy them and let the myriad worlds know the price of traitors." "You mean the Xueqi Ancestor? But he's with Long Chen." Common People Emperor Ancestor was puzzled. "Who said it's the Xueqi Ancestor? Where is the largest and most populous world in the myriad of worlds?" asked the Black Hole Witch Ancestor. Tao Ancestor Ji Yuan said, "Not the Dragon Sacrificial Continent, but the Second Era's Origin Cave. The ones who betrayed us are the Bright Gold Ancestor and the Demonic Silver Ancestor." "That's right." The Shaman Ancestor looked in an empty direction in the myriad worlds and sneered. "It's time for them to pay the price. With the 6 of us, we can destroy the Bright Gold Ancestor and the Demonic Silver Ancestor before Long Chen and the others arrive and instantly destroy the Second Era's Origin Cave. This is the place with the most living beings." Everyone was shocked by the Shaman Ancestor's boldness. However, they were all eager to try. "Very good. I've long disliked these two. It's time to release the biggest bomb in the myriad worlds," Common People Emperor Ancestor said sinisterly. His eyes were filled with fighting spirit. Sacred Ancestor Kitagarbha said, "But didn't we say that we'll destroy the next world in 10 days? Everyone laughed. "If we followed the rules, would we still be standing here together? We are going to wipe them out completely. We'll reorganize the myriad worlds and unify them. We'll let the 6 races rule the world. If we don't want others to climb over our heads, we have to do whatever it takes to climb over their heads. The Second Era's Origin Cave. Your doomsday is here." The Shaman Ancestor laughed. "My 8 little cuties. I only ate some snacks just now. Now, it's time for your main meal. You must eat your fill." He looked at his palms. The Shaman Ancestor's smile became even more strange. The Second Era's Origin Cave, the ancestral realm of destruction. On this vast continent, countless living beings were coexisting peacefully. This prosperous world was the largest among the myriad worlds. Although the Dragon Sacrificial Continent could match this place in size, the number of living beings inside was completely incomparable. After all, this place had been flourishing for countless great eras. It hadn't been destroyed by the Sky-Swallowing clan. It was still peaceful. The life of the Steel clan in the ancestral realm of destruction was almost the same as before. Now that the Second Era's Origin Cave was connected to the myriad worlds, people could enter and exit freely. Moreover, the Second Era's Origin Cave was rich in spirit chi. So many gods and demons from the myriad worlds sneaked in to cultivate. There were a lot of them, but compared to the countless Steel clan in the ancestral realm of destruction, this number was very small. Therefore, it didn't affect the lives of the Steel clan. Especially with the Bright Gold Ancestor and the Devilish Silver Ancestor, the 2 most ancient ancestors here, the Steel clan wasn't worried. Especially recently, the 2 ancestor gods returned and didn't seem to leave. Instead, they started building a formation on the ancestral realm of destruction. Because of the short period of time, the formation hadn't taken shape yet. The 2 ancestor gods and the 5th era ancestor gods were all working hard. Actually, it's better to have a stable life in the past. The myriad worlds are changing too much now, and I have a bad feeling. A 9th era ancestor god stood on the ancestral realm of destruction, patrolling around. Next to him was an 8th era ancestor god. He said, "It can't be helped. This is the fate of the ancestral realm of destruction." However, I felt that it was a bit inappropriate for the 2 ancestors to join those people's camp. Fortunately, the 2 ancestors gave up and returned, no longer participating in the struggle of the myriad worlds. Yes, those 6 ancestor gods are really crazy. The Builder Tree was destroyed in an instant, and now the people of the ancestral realm of destruction are panicking. Fortunately, the ancestral realm of destruction can stay out of it. After all, both sides are fighting, and they don't want to waste their energy on us. They might even try to rope us in. Speaking of the two ancestor gods, they were still very proud and arrogant. They believed that the ancestral realm of destruction was the #1 world in the myriad worlds. The draconic sacrificial continent couldn't compare to them now. Moreover, they were ancestral gods of destruction, so there was still room for improvement. Let's go and take a look over there. Don't let the thieves of other worlds sneak into our ancestral realm of destruction. The two of them were in high spirits as they continued forward. Suddenly, 6 elder gods appeared within the clouds in front of them. Of course, they recognized these 6 terrifying existences. They were the nightmares of the myriad worlds. All of them were expressionless. However, their fiendish auras couldn't be concealed. It was direct and vicious, and as soon as it appeared, the 2 Annihilation Ancestor gods were suppressed to the brink of death. Of course, the 2 Annihilation Ancestor gods had to fight back. World of Glory. The luminous gold ancestor was forced into a corner and had no choice but to use his ultimate technique. His entire body exploded with golden light, radiating with terrifying light that engulfed the entire destruction ancestral territory, drowning everything in its golden light. This golden light was filled with a vast, heaven-defying power that fiercely resisted the laws of the 6 ancestor gods. Trillion Devil Silver Puppets. As for the Devil Silver Ancestor, he was taking advantage of the glorious world of glory to use his ultimate technique to escape. It wasn't a wise idea to fight the other side head-on. He had to hold on until Long Chen and the others came to help. Rip. The entire Devil Silver Ancestor turned into a trillion silver beads that scattered in an attempt to escape the limits of the other side's laws. They used extreme methods to resist and escape. At this time, they couldn't care less about the destruction ancestral territory. Even the laws they resisted would destroy the destruction ancestral territory and the Steel Clan on it. But there was no other way. They couldn't defend themselves against the attacks of the 6 4th era primordial ancestor gods. It was normal for them to be injured. Break. Run. These were the thoughts of the bright gold ancestor and the devil silver ancestor. Even though they were suppressed to the extreme. Among them, the bright gold ancestor wanted to take advantage of the golden light of the world of glory to escape, while the devil silver ancestor became one of the billions of silver beads and prepared to escape. After all, the 6 primordial ancestor gods had joined forces. Although the 4th era primordial ancestor gods had joined forces, it wouldn't be easy to kill them. You want to take revenge on us? Humph. Wait for Long Chen and the others to deal with you. The bright gold ancestors' laughter echoed throughout the world. But at this time, the 6 ancestor gods still had indifferent expressions. At this time, the chaotic whole witch ancestor suddenly smiled. The golden light engulfed him, making it difficult to fathom him. For a moment, a strange thing seemed to appear in the golden light of the world of glory. Continue. The 6 elder gods continued to attack, bombarding the 2 elder gods in a frenzy. Among them, the blood demon ancestor, the epic Tao ancestor, and the past and future ancestors were all in the middle of the 4th era. Each of them could crush the 2 bright gold ancestor, which showed how powerful they were. As long as they had enough time, they would definitely be able to kill these 2. The bright gold ancestor and the others still had a sliver of hope against this level of encirclement. The reason was that they wanted to last until Long Chen and the others arrived. Kill! The great whole shaman ancestor shouted. Suddenly, in the golden world of glory, there seemed to be a giant beast galloping. Vaguely, the silhouettes of 8 giant beasts could be seen. Bas! 8 giant beasts and 6 4th era progenitor gods had surrounded the 2 destruction progenitor gods. Due to the sudden appearance of an accident, the bright gold progenitor and the devil silver progenitor had engaged in a terrifying attack. Bang! For a time, the ancestral destruction domain shook several times, and it was unknown how many lives were lost. At the last moment. No! No! Within the flickering world, the miserable cries of the bright gold ancestor and the demonic silver ancestor could be heard. Within this golden light, giant beasts galloped. Something that they couldn't believe appeared, something that exceeded their imaginations. It was as if they were being attacked by more than 10 opponents at the same time. Rumble. Finally. Nirvana. Long Chen, save me. The bright gold ancestor's terrified cry spread throughout the myriad worlds, causing a huge upheaval. The builder tree had just been destroyed. Everyone was still immersed in fear and hatred. Who would have thought that the bright gold ancestor's cry for help would instantly spread throughout the world? Who would have thought? In fact, from the moment the Devil's Silver Ancestor called out to Long Chen to the bright gold ancestor's cry for help, only a split second had passed. Not long after Long Chen entered the state of mind on the 4th floor of the Tower of Time, he heard this call. The Devil's Silver Ancestor is asking me for help. Those 6 progenitor gods actually went to take revenge on them. Long Chen stood up. After all, the 4th floor of the Tower of Time had 10,000 times the time. He didn't need to be too anxious here, so he talked with Mo Xiaolang and pondered for a while. Will they set up a trap and wait for me to go over? This was what Long Chen thought. After all, the Devil's Silver Ancestor was one of their people from the beginning. I don't think so. Previously, they said that they would only destroy the second world in 10 days. That's something outside of their plan. They're probably going to take revenge on these 2 traitors to them. Given their current situation, it might not be impossible for them to do such a thing. They've already gone crazy. Mo Xiaolang said. That should be the case. Chapter 36-35. This is an opportunity. I must subdue them. When Long Chen arrived at the Death World, the other ancestor gods and Lingxi had already left. He quickly followed, and in the blink of an eye, he arrived at the Destruction Ancestral Domain. All he could see was endless golden light. The golden light drowned the world, blocking vision and perception. If he was right, Long Chen guessed that this was the luminous gold ancestor's law. Long Chen, save me. The devilish silver ancestor's voice was still echoing in Long Chen's ears, but it seemed to have stopped. After that, there was no more sound from the 2. They are over there. The ancestor gods found their position and chased after them. Boom. At this moment, the golden light trembled and dissipated. It seemed that the luminous gold ancestor could no longer support this law. Therefore, Long Chen could vaguely sense the direction of the 6 ancestor gods. They are escaping. After them. This was a rare opportunity. At this time, they had to think of a way to stop them. Even if they died, they couldn't let them escape again. If they hadn't come here to fight the luminous gold ancestor, it would have been very difficult to get so close to them. Look up. The Chaos Hole Ancestor, the Mortal Emperor Ancestor, and the others had smiles on their faces as they gathered in a row. At this moment, Long Chen saw the strange black light converge into the Chaos Hole Ancestor's palm. The Chaos Hole Ancestor smiled, and his gaze met Long Chen's. He grinned. You are too late. At this moment, a ripple enveloped them. The moment Long Chen and the others arrived, the ripple disappeared. The 6 ancestor gods once again disappeared before their eyes. Just a moment away. They disappeared again. After they disappeared, the golden light disappeared. Damn it! Even the Chaos Hole Ancestor God was enraged that he couldn't catch up to them. He wanted nothing more than to destroy this place to vent his anger. Now that the golden light had dissipated, everyone could clearly see their surroundings. Looking down, they saw that the ancestral land had indeed been greatly affected by the battle. This world was relatively stable, and even though it wasn't destroyed, it had suffered great damage. Many mountains had been flattened. The oceans evaporated, and the continents cracked into billions of islands. At least 1% of the living beings on those islands died, and countless were injured. They said that they would attack the next world in 10 days. Why are they? Lingxi was so angry that she was about to cry. She was actually under a lot of pressure. She had been trying to think of a way, but before she could think of anything, the other party continued to attack. They probably think that the luminous gold ancestor and the others are traitors and aren't counted. Their main goal today isn't to destroy the world. The luminous gold ancestor and the others are elder gods of destruction. Killing them is useless against destroying the world. Long Chen explained as he surveyed his surroundings. Long Chen would naturally resurrect those people in the destruction ancestral land below. But most importantly, what about the bright gold ancestor and devilish silver ancestor? At this moment, The other elder gods were searching as well. How did the 6 of them escape in such a short period of time? How did the luminous gold ancestor and the others disappear? Could it be that this is part of their scheme? The luminous gold ancestor and the others were originally on their side. For a time, the elder gods were very puzzled. They searched everywhere but couldn't find a single trace of them. This was completely impossible. All of you come out. There were quite a few elder gods hiding below. There were over 1,000 of them, and nearly 10 of them were 5th era elder gods. They only dared to come out after being summoned by Long Chen. If we don't break through, we won't just lose a single world, but countless worlds. That's why I feel that the most important thing for me isn't to chase after them one by one, but to find a way to surpass them and destroy them. All losses are unavoidable. Now, Long Chen could no longer say that he could bring every living being back from the dead. He could only say that more people would survive. Even if the world was destroyed, they would still be able to enter the dragon sacrificial continent. Their ancestor god would still exist, and they would still have the chance to create their world. You made the right choice. Your greatest value is in your potential. Let us do the chasing, scouting, and negotiating, said the primal chaos ancestral god. There was no time to lose. Long Chen calmed his heart and chose to return to the pagoda of time. Maybe the ancestor god creation's goal was to disturb his mind, but he knew that he absolutely couldn't allow himself to be disturbed. The heart of slaughter. The hatred from the death of the dragon attendants, the hatred from the destruction of the supreme ancient immortal realm and the builder tree. And now, the ancestor god creation had killed 2 ancestor gods of destruction, provoking him. All of these formed a boundless wave of rage. His blood chi churned and exploded within his divine dragon body. The surging hatred caused Long Chen to recomprehend the heart of slaughter in silence, gaining a deeper understanding of it. His entire body sank into this state. Time flowed by, and he calmed down, no longer caring about time. Instead, he was pursuing a higher level of slaughter. The ancestor god creation couldn't be killed. The chaos whole ancestor and the others were the ancestor god creation, but they had done something that made Long Chen want nothing more than to tear them into pieces. This was a contradiction. Long Chen couldn't allow all living beings to be wiped out. But now, he had no other choice. Before he could resolve this matter, he could only watch as a portion of the living beings were turned into shattered souls. Should I kill them or not? This was a doubt, a question. If he wanted to kill them, how should he kill them? How could he kill the ancestor god creation without killing the origin source of the world? The ancestor god creation was the soul of the ancestor, hidden within the origin energy of the world. They controlled the origin energy of the world and were inextricably linked to the origin of the world. How should he extract the soul of the ancestor? Most probably, even the origin soul ancestor wouldn't be able to do it. Long Chen kept pondering. This question stumped him. His ultimate question was, how should he kill the ancestor god creation? After all, the primordial blood spirit dragon was the most proficient in killing. Blood was just one of the aspects that the blood demon ancestor was proficient in. His greatest law was slaughter and death. In the unseen world, when Long Chen was pursuing the truth, he saw some explanations and means. But to really realize it, he probably needed a deeper level of understanding. However, after about 200 years, in any case, Long Chen still condensed the 5th world origin of slaughter ahead of time. It was really ahead of time. According to the plan, this time would probably be 2,000 years, and the time would gradually decrease for the remaining 3. But to complete it in more than 200 years, it could only be said that the pressure Long Chen was under now was too great. Hua! Long Chen opened his blood-colored eyes. He probably had some understanding of how to kill the ancestor god. I've finally digested it. The chaotic whole ancestor looked at his palm with satisfaction and revealed a knowing smile. The 4th era's ancestor god is more nourishing. It's really a miracle that such a destruction ancestor god can appear in the myriad worlds. The destruction ancestor god is much easier to digest than the creation ancestor god. The world origin of the creation ancestor god was really troublesome. The surrounding 5 ancestor gods were not far away. They didn't say much and seemed to be waiting for orders. There's no news from Long Chen these days? The chaotic whole ancestor asked. No. The other fourth era's ancestor gods wanted to contact us, but we ignored them. As for Long Chen, I guess he's already pissed off and doesn't dare to move. The chaotic whole ancestor smiled and said, Time has passed in the blink of an eye. It's time for us to bring a new gift to the myriad worlds. It's also good for our babies to exercise their muscles. It's a pity that I only cared about the two ancestor gods of the fourth era and neglected the sentient beings. Moreover, they came too quickly. Otherwise, the children would be able to feast on the souls of so many sentient beings. Chaotic cave ancestor sighed in his heart. Squeak. His palm began to move. Stop it, stop it. I'll take you to find food right away. The chaotic whole ancestor was very satisfied and then said to the crowd, The next world. The world of the monster clan, the Kuan ancestor realm. How about it? Chapter 36-37. About 10 days later, Long Chen came out of the Tower of Time and arrived at the Death Realm. Lingxi and the other elder gods were waiting for Long Chen. In fact, when Long Chen appeared, they could clearly feel that Long Chen had changed. This was the improvement of the origin of the world. Long Chen did not hide it. They now had some understanding of Long Chen's situation. At this time, Long Chen's killing intent was stronger. Clearly, he had made some progress with the primordial blood spirit dragon. The elder gods did not expect this. According to their estimates, Long Chen would need more than 10 times the time to reach this level. So they were a little surprised. They did not say much, but inwardly, they were happy. At least they could see that Long Chen was still in the process of rapid transformation. Destiny Astral Ancestor hurried out and said, Long Chen, I found something. What? It was almost the time the other party had mentioned. If he had found something, it must be the key. Destiny Astral Ancestor said, It's like this. I paid a heavy price to think about it carefully. Using the Tao of Destiny, I was able to foresee what would happen in the future. After all, the enemy elder gods are involved, and they are trying to stop me. This time, I managed to find out some information. Their target this time is likely to be the Eastern Star Field. Eastern Star Region. Long Chen believed in Destiny Astral Ancestor. Clearly, the method he mentioned was not very easy. The other party was also a fourth-era origin ancestor god, so they would be on guard and not let him see. It was already very good that he could tell it was the Eastern Star Region. How much longer do they have to attack? About 6 hours. There were still 6 hours left. Long Chen felt that he could give it a try. Since they can tell it's the Eastern Star Region, they obviously have a clear target. That's why they let Destiny Astral Ancestor see it. In that case, I can also try to use the rule of time to see the future. Okay. Long Chen had never tried before. He had thought about it in the past 10 days, but the other party had probably always had a clear target, so it was difficult to see. Now that he had a clue, Long Chen was ready to give it a try. He arrived at the temporal tunnel and the eternal vortex. The power of time here could assist him. Long Chen had never traveled through time and space to see the future. Although it was said that there were no risks, it was true that the future was unpredictable. There were too many possibilities, and if one saw too many, it would be easy to confuse oneself. It affected his state of mind. For example, Long Chen would see the scene of the myriad worlds being destroyed, the scene of the dragon sacrificial continent being destroyed, the scene of everyone around him being annihilated, and even the details. That was quite unbearable. The power of time swept around Long Chen. The vast sea of time drowned him inch by inch. Mirror of the future. Under Long Chen's control, the boundless power of time condensed into a giant mirror in front of him. This mirror was like a vortex, and inside it were countless rooms. Each room contained a myriad of worlds, too many to count. These worlds were constantly collapsing and changing, and they were constantly changing. There were endless possibilities, and it was constantly evolving. Long Chen did not dare to go deep into these worlds. If he went too deep, the future would become reality, and Long Chen would be directly swallowed by that reality. His eyes constantly changed as he searched. His heart was still stable. Even if he saw a scene of despair, he could still face it calmly. Eastern Star Region. Long Chen focused the image on the countless Eastern Star Region. Fortunately, the range was limited by the fated star ancestor, so Long Chen could reduce the range by a lot. And in the eastern star region, the vague image of a battle taking place occupied a part of it. Most of them seemed to be related to a world. That is, that world was very blurry. But in Long Chen's mind, a big fish, a fierce tiger, and a rock appeared. Kuan Ancestral Realm. When he thought of this world, the clouds in the mirror of the future changed and condensed into a world. It was Kuan Ancestral Realm. There should be no mistake. This time, Long Chen had a certain degree of confidence. After all, the other party had a very clear goal, and the fated star ancestor had spent a lot of energy to help him lock on the target. Coupled with his own perception, Long Chen could basically be sure. He had come to the death realm. "Let's go to Kuan Ancestral Realm," said Long Chen. "Chen, are you sure it's this world?" Lingxi was a little worried. Long Chen said, "It's impossible to say for sure, but for me, this is the most likely place. We can only wait there and hide. If we make the right bet, maybe we will gain something. After all, facing them, we are too passive. Okay. Let's hide in Kuan Ancestral Realm first." Everyone trusted Long Chen even more. Ancestral Hun Kuan's realm, as well as the spell formation that Elder God Hun Kuan had set up. Upon arriving, Long Chen and the others hid behind the spell formation. Time passed bit by bit as Long Chen and the others conversed in secret. "Once they appear, we'll have to attack them as quickly as possible. We'll have to do our best to disperse them and keep them here. Of course, the most important ones are the past and future ancestors. Therefore, I suggest that at least 4 of you deal with the past and future ancestors." Apart from the past and future ancestors, the others had all seen the situation. In the end, 5 of them had been sent to deal with the past and future ancestors. When they arrived, they would deal with them. Time was a small matter. In Long Chen's mind, he could hear the voices of all living beings. The closer they got to that time, the more nervous they became. Chapter 36-38. To Chaos Whole Ancestor and the others, the appearance of Long Chen and the others was too sudden. They were full of confidence and wanted to destroy Chaos Kuan Ancestor Realm to give Long Chen and the others a show of strength. Today, the moment they appeared, they started killing. In this chaotic whirlpool, even Long Chen, who was on the attacking side, found it hard to control. Although the law attacks weren't targeting him, they still affected him to a certain extent. He and Lingxi were a small team. In the most chaotic state, his right hand was holding the blood sword slaughter and his left hand was wrapped by the time chain. These 2 powers had the origin of the 5th world. This was Long Chen's strongest ability. Common People's Emperor Ancestor. Actually, Long Chen wanted to find Chaos Whole Ancestor the most. But the one closest to him and Lingxi was Common People's Emperor Ancestor. As for Chaos Whole Ancestor, he couldn't see where he was in this chaotic scene. The other ancestor gods were probably targeting him. He had fallen into another world's imprisonment. The most obvious one was Common People's Emperor Ancestor. Of course, Long Chen wouldn't choose him. Common People's Emperor Ancestor was someone he hated. World Stop Curse. Lingxi was prepared and attacked even faster than Long Chen. She had once defeated Common People's Emperor Ancestor and was using the same trick again. Primal Disaster Curse. 2 curses hung on Common People's Emperor Ancestor's body. At this moment, he had just arrived and was stunned. Moment God Country. The Time World Source swept out and the chain flew out like a whip. It wrapped around Common People's Emperor Ancestor. The Moment God's Kingdom was Long Chen's highest attainment in stopping time. The outline of a magical country appeared around Common People's Emperor Ancestor. This was a country that stopped time and swallowed him up. World Stop Curse and Moment God Country locked down Common People's Emperor Ancestor who had just appeared. He didn't move. Wheel of the Past. Just at this moment, a giant wheel of light appeared on the chaotic battlefield. It expanded and swept, shining brightly. This wasn't the law of the ancestor god that Long Chen was familiar with. It was definitely the ancestor of the past and future. So many elder gods, but none of them were able to stop her. The most crucial part of this attack was to deal with the past and future ancestors. However, a problem still occurred here. allowing the past and future ancestors to display their terrifying laws. From this, it could be seen that the difficulty of dealing with the ancestor of the past and future still exceeded the imagination of Long Chen and the others. The wheel of the past enveloped the entire battlefield. Within the wheel, there were complex array diagrams of laws. Countless translucent ropes extended out like tentacles, attaching themselves to the bodies of the elder gods. On Long Chen's side, in the endless chaotic world, the only one he could see was common people's emperor ancestor. The transparent ropes of the wheel of the past were connected to his body, and they pierced through Long Chen and Lingxi's laws. It pierced straight into the world of Long Chen's instant divine kingdom. Then, the divine body of common people emperor ancestor flashed in the moment God nation, ready to leave at any moment. Not good. Long Chen can't stop them. Their escaping ability is too strong. Try to take one or two down. The past and future ancestors were dragging them away. Under such a situation, of course, they would try to pull as many as they could. Since Long Chen and Lingxi were controlling common people emperor ancestor, when the situation went out of control, of course, they wanted to hold him back. World-cleansing celestial king sword. Lingxi was swept by the white lotus, slashing furiously on the transparent ropes. She continuously sliced off the roots, but this still couldn't stop common people emperor ancestor from flashing away. At this moment, common people emperor ancestor's body was struggling and he could already speak. He opened his mouth and laughed. Haha, all of you can't even catch us. You are wasting your energy. That arrogant, confident, and gleeful look really infuriated one. 9 skies and 10 lands, eternal soul-breaking curse. If Lingxi was forced into a corner, that would also be a terrifying thing. When the wheel of the past appeared, she was worried that she would lose this opportunity again. Thus, she quickly began to prepare and explode, unleashing this peerless curse that came from the god-cursed demon ancestor. Common people emperor ancestor was still laughing when he was instantly hit. His face turned ashen white, his body was in a mess, and he twitched. This curse entered deep into his soul, slicing it like a knife. This pain was really heaven-defying. During these days, Lingxi had become the person that common people emperor ancestor feared the most. In the 10,000 worlds, common people emperor ancestor's heart-wrenching screams spread out. Don't think about leaving. Under Lingxi's control, the eternal soul-breaking curse wrapped around common people emperor ancestor. I will leave now. At this moment, the wheel of the past was about to activate and send them back to the past to escape from this place. This power actually exceeded the control of the dozens of ancestor gods present. This was really rare. Common people emperor ancestor's body flashed intensely. Lingxi went all out and wanted to use the curse to stop him here. At this moment, after a period of preparation, Long Chen had finished his preparations. In truth, after completing Moment God Country, he immediately used this move. Departed Soul Hell Whirlpool. The blood slaughter sword in his hand became incomparably huge. Then, under Long Chen's control, it charged into Moment God Country and drew a circle in front of common people emperor ancestor. That circle quickly turned into a terrifying blood-colored whirlpool. Within the whirlpool, it was incomparably deep, like a bottomless pit. The bottomless pit was spinning intensely and terrifyingly. As it spun, countless shattered souls were born. The entire whirlpool, which wasn't that big, was filled with billions of souls. Hunglong. The departed soul hell whirlpool gave birth to a terrifying suction force. When Lingxi's curse landed on common people emperor ancestor's body, the suction force also affected him. At this moment, common people emperor ancestor was facing Lingxi's strongest curse as well as Long Chen's shocking soul-devouring power. In that instant, the departed soul hell whirlpool was like the mouth of a giant beast that swallowed common people emperor ancestor. This was when the power of the wheel of the past was still affecting common people emperor ancestor. When common people emperor ancestor was swallowed, Long Chen and Lingxi were fighting against the past and future ancestor. The opponent's power was really mysterious. It is the power of time, but not all of it. Long Chen dealt with it calmly. When he used Slaughter and Lingxi's curse, he used the power of time within the death whirlpool. It was the exact opposite of the power of the past. This power of time, the whirlpool, and the curse were connected together. In the blink of an eye, The wheel of the past was getting further and further away from common people emperor ancestor. Wang. In that instant, the past and future ancestor had already brought the wheel of the past with him, turning into a shimmering mist. He suddenly exploded and disappeared. No one knew where he went. On the battlefield, the feeling from the opponent was quickly disappearing under the pull of the wheel of the past. Who is left? Many people lost their opponents and stopped attacking. Only then did the battlefield become less chaotic. They discovered that the Chaos Hole Ancestor, Saint Ancestor Kitagarbha, Blood Demon Ancestor, and Eridao Ancestor had all been pulled away by the past and future ancestors at the last moment. After all, they did not have Lingxi's curse, nor did they have Long Chen's power to control time. Common people Emperor Ancestor had not been able to escape. Although it was simple, Long Chen had indeed caught him at the last moment. He had severed the connection between him and the wheel of the past. Don't let him escape. In an instant, everyone saw their only prey. All the ancestor gods surrounded him. Long Chen spat him out of the death spirit whirlpool. In an instant, all the attacks of the ancestor gods landed on him. Rumble! Common people Emperor Ancestor's flesh and blood body was once again destroyed. Only the world source of the mortal people Emperor's pagoda was left, which was tightly restrained by the ancestor gods. No matter what, in the current situation, being able to catch one of them was already a great progress. At least, there was still hope for the future. There was still hope for all living beings. You dare to hurt me? Aren't you afraid of angering us? We won't give you any chance to destroy the 10,000 worlds. Common people Emperor Ancestor roared, threatening. Shut his mouth. Long Chen could not be bothered to listen to him. Looking back, because of the intense battle, the Chaos Kuan ancestral realm was still affected. Long Chen sent down the flame of life. The entire 10,000 worlds were paying attention to the battle between the peak ancestor gods. In the end, Chapter 36-39. This time, it wasn't easy for them to predict that they would attack the Hunkin ancestral realm. Actually, Long Chen's goal was to imprison them all at once. At the very least, they would be imprisoned for a long time, unable to come into contact with the myriad worlds. Unless Long Chen had a way to completely control them. But such a good chance only locked up one common people's emperor ancestor. That was a pity. I didn't expect that the ancestor of the past and future would be so powerful. She managed to escape even after we surrounded her. In previous battles, she wasn't particularly outstanding, but when it came to escaping, she was the #1 elder god. As long as she wants to escape, so many of us can't stop her. This is a great opportunity. They all felt that it was a pity. Such a good opportunity had been wasted, and the next time would be even more difficult. It was not always possible to know which world the other party was going to attack. Luckily, I caught common people's emperor ancestor. This was the only consolation in his heart. The ancestor gods of the dragon sacrificial continent were constantly paying attention to the situation here. On the other hand, the living beings of the myriad worlds did not know much about the current situation. They could only wait for the news of the next world being destroyed. However, this time, the myriad worlds seemed to be very calm. No one knew what was happening. Which world is it that's gone? Will Long Chen commit suicide at a time like this? Under the fear of the destruction of the world, they didn't know what they were thinking. Long Chen, how do you plan to deal with it? Primordial War Ancestor asked. Now, everyone was gathered together again, monitoring the movements of the infinite worlds. I wonder where they are now and what they're going to do. Everyone muttered in their hearts. After all, even if they caught the common people's emperor ancestor, they wouldn't be able to hurt their foundations. Long Chen looked at the common people's emperor pagoda and said, if I had a choice, I would definitely kill him on the spot. Unfortunately, I can't for the time being. After all, the common people's emperor region was such a huge world. If they killed him, it would be a crime that would go down in history. At this moment, the vast voice of the fourth era's ancestral god once again resounded in the infinite worlds. That was the extremely cold voice of Era Ancestor. He was furious and roared, Long Chen, I will give you a chance to release common people Emperor Ancestor. Otherwise, we will start a massacre. His furious voice caused the entire world to tremble. Hearing the contents of the voice, all living beings and the gods and demons realized that from how angry the Era Dao ancestor was, it seemed like their operation had failed. Moreover, the common people's emperor ancestor had been captured. Impossible! Didn't they say that it would be difficult for them to catch each other? Did Long Chen and the others see through their plan? This result was a pleasant surprise to all living beings in the infinite worlds, and they regained hope in Long Chen. However, seeing how enraged the Dao ancestor was, they were a bit worried. The battle wasn't over yet, and in their frenzy, they were about to start a massacre. Long Chen knew that they would not let this matter rest. Didn't you say that a world would be destroyed in 10 days? Today, your operation failed and we even caught the common people's emperor ancestor. Are you going to fly into a rage out of humiliation and not follow your own rules? Long Chen calmly replied. His calm voice also spread throughout the infinite worlds. Such a voice finally calmed the hearts of all living beings. But right away, the other party dropped a heavy bomb. It was the Chaos Whole ancestor's turn. He laughed coldly. We don't have any rules. 10 days was just a game we played with you. Unfortunately, you guessed the location of the game correctly. However, we said that we would destroy a world today. You are lucky to be in the Chaos Kuan ancestor's realm. But we said that we had to do well, right? So, today we will still destroy a world. Long Chen, can you guess the next world? The other party's cold voice reverberated throughout the infinite worlds, causing one's heart to go numb. Long Chen guessed that since they didn't attack consecutively and were just stalling for time while exerting pressure on Long Chen, they probably hadn't prepared something. Of course, attacking twice today wasn't a problem for them. Today's problem wasn't solved at all. Now, all living beings in the infinite worlds panicked. Today, another world would be destroyed. The world was going to be destroyed. The world was going to be destroyed. Everything was going to be destroyed. Families were going to be destroyed. It was the most tragic thing in the world. Everyone was panicking. At this moment, the chaotic whole ancestor's voice rang out again. He chuckled a few times and said, "However, something unexpected happened today. Consider it your win. Therefore, I will propose a condition. We will let you go this time. As long as you release the common people's ancestor, we will not attack the next world today. The next time we attack, we will talk about time. I am being merciful and sparing the entire world. What do you think about such a deal, Long Chen?" After he said this, the infinite worlds were in dead silence. This was a huge problem. The fourth era ancestor gods all looked at Long Chen with much difficulty. They all knew how much Long Chen hated them. Common people's emperor ancestor was one of them. Today, they spent a lot of effort to capture common people's emperor ancestor. But at this moment, they wanted to use the survival of a world to exchange for common people's emperor ancestor. Chapter 3640. At this moment, Long Chen said something that exceeded everyone's imagination. His opponents and companions didn't expect him to make such a decision. After all, it didn't match his style of doing things and the wishes of all living beings in the myriad worlds. Long Chen. In this situation, it isn't much use for us to imprison the common people emperor ancestor. Since they have already said that we can save one world today, we will save one world, the primordial war ancestor said helplessly. I know you are unwilling, we are all unwilling, but the ancestor god is destined not to be killed from the moment they appeared, the primordial soul ancestor murmured. They thought that Long Chen was just saying it casually. But at this moment, Long Chen had already stopped in front of the common people emperor ancestor. Chen. Perhaps at this moment, all living beings in the world, including Lingxi, didn't understand Long Chen. They felt that he was immature and impulsive at this moment. The opponent was too ruthless, and now wasn't the time to be impulsive. Of course, what Long Chen said just now was for all living beings in the world to hear. This time, he went against the wishes of all living beings in the world. When the world told him to give up, he chose to persevere and resist. The Chaos Whole ancestor and the others thought that they had heard wrongly. The Chaos Whole ancestor lost his voice and said, Long Chen, did I hear wrongly? You want us to destroy the world, but you want to kill a fourth-era ancestor god. This doubt existed in the hearts of all living beings in the myriad worlds. They originally thought that after 10 days of peace, Long Chen and the others could save at least one world today. Long Chen didn't reply. He entered a state of blood. In front of him was the fearless common people emperor ancestor. Although he was restrained, he still raised his head and squinted his eyes. He looked at Long Chen with a smug smile. Needless to say, he was telling Long Chen that he was the ancestor god and that Long Chen couldn't do anything to him. The era ancestor shouted coldly, "Long Chen, it seems like you have been frightened by us. Don't you know how many people will die when we destroy a world? Don't you know that if you kill the common people's emperor ancestor, the billions of lives in the common people's emperor region will be destroyed because of your cruelty, evil, and rashness? It seems like compared to us, you are even more of an executioner for them." "That's right. Long Chen, you dare to do this. You are much more vicious than us. In your eyes, all the living beings in the myriad worlds are the real ants. Poor ants. They really thought that you cared for them. They are too naive and stupid." Divine Ancestor Kitagaba laughed. Merciless mockery. "Today you win. I just want you to release the common people emperor ancestor and Long Chen. I'll give you one last chance. Young man, don't be too agitated. There is still a long way to go. The war between us is far from over," the black hole sorcerer ancestor said shamelessly like an elder. However, Long Chen didn't respond even after they had spoken to this extent. This made all the living beings in the myriad worlds and the gods panic. Could it be that what they said is true? Long Chen has always acted like a savior, but I'm afraid it's just an act. In his heart, we are all insignificant ants, so he doesn't care about the lives of ants at all. He only cares about his status in the myriad worlds. If that's the case, it makes sense why he wants to kill the common people emperor ancestor and destroy him. He even wants his opponent to destroy a world. The black hole sorcerer ancestor had this kind of magic. He could make all the living beings in the myriad worlds think in the direction he pointed. Many years of hard work. Today, 10,000 worlds objected. Their hearts were filled with unwillingness. In the end it formed. At this moment, the ancestor's soul was like a flower, withering in the source of the world. It was swallowed by massacring. This was the unimaginably terrifying power of the blood spirit soul devouring. In the past, even the 10 ancestor dragons didn't have the power to destroy the ancestor gods. The ancestor soul withered, but the source of the world was unharmed. The world's origin, on the other hand, was completely unharmed. Long Chen didn't need to slowly separate the ancestral soul from the world's origin. He directly caused it to wither, be destroyed, and be swallowed. The common people's emperor ancestor didn't expect that this would be his outcome. He didn't scream for long because this time, since he made such a choice, Long Chen wouldn't give him any chance. Until the common people's emperor pagoda became the empty shell of the source of the world. Chapter 3642. The Fourth Era's Ancestor God, and it was the fall of the Ancestor God. Such a situation was unprecedented and unheard of. Of course, the beings of the 10,000 worlds did not know. However, they could vaguely sense that Long Chen wasn't acting according to their wishes. This was why the common people's emperor ancestor cried out in pain. They could only hear the common people's emperor ancestor's voice stop, but they did not know that he was already dead. In truth, when Long Chen pulled out the massacring blood sword, the common people's emperor pagoda's world source was still complete. It was just a little dimmer, as though it had lost its life. However, 6 of the world sources were still complete. It was just that the ancestral souls that should have been here had disappeared, devoured by the massacring blood sword. At this moment, the 10,000 worlds were silent. The surrounding ancestor gods looked at Long Chen and the common people's emperor pagoda in shock. This was the first time, and there was a lot of uncertainty. Long Chen was taking a risk, so he stared at the common people's emperor pagoda nervously. Common people's emperor ancestor? Long Chen tried to call out, using his mind to attack the common people's emperor pagoda. There was no reply for a long time. The common people's Emperor Pagoda was deathly silent. There was no movement at all, but one thing was for sure. This thing was still there. The most obvious proof was that the common people's Emperor domain had not changed because of the changes here. The trillions of common people's god race members were still alive and well. Even though they were nervous, they still existed. How can this be? The ancestor gods of the Fourth Era all looked at Long Chen in shock. They had supported Long Chen at the last moment, but in their hearts, they might not have believed that such a thing would happen. Common people's emperor ancestor is dead. But the world source is still here. The common people's emperor domain is still here. At this moment, Long Chen was extremely emotional. His eyes were slightly red, as though a huge burden had been lifted from his shoulders. His heart was filled with pride as he roared towards the 10,000 worlds. Of course, he let everyone in the 10,000 worlds hear his voice in their ears and in their hearts. This was a bomb that could blow up the entire 10,000 worlds. What? It was precisely because they were the Fourth Era's primordial ancestral gods that they were even more shocked. He can kill the creator god, but he can't destroy the world's origin, he can't destroy the world, and he can't harm the common people. This was the result of Long Chen's actions today. From now on, I'm afraid he'll be able to kill to his heart's content. I'm afraid the restrictions set by the creator god are no longer true restrictions. For a time, looks of shock and delight were written all over the faces of the surrounding elder gods. They deeply understood how difficult it was for Long Chen to achieve this. He was fighting against all living beings in the myriad worlds to finally take this step. This was why it wasn't easy for common people's emperor ancestor to die. The ones who dare not imagine this matter the most are them. The primal chaos ancestral god laughed coldly in his heart. Long Chen persevered and killed common people emperor ancestor. This caused the meaning of the battle between the two of them to change. Although it wasn't necessarily a good thing for the future situation, at the very least, they would definitely feel the fear of death in their hearts. In the past, their greatest reliance was that Long Chen did not dare to kill them. Today it was totally different. This was the time that belonged to Long Chen. Before this, he had been suppressing a lot of things in his heart. Now that he had killed common people emperor ancestor, Long Chen finally stood up and faced the gods and demons of the myriad worlds. Facing the remaining 5 enemies, he said, "Firstly, let me say something to the myriad worlds. The battle isn't over yet, so please don't give up. There is cause and effect in the heavens. Those who do evil will receive their retribution. Today is just the beginning. Of course, I know that they will still destroy the world and there will still be many lives lost. However, this isn't an excuse for us to be weak. The more we worry about evil, the worse the outcome will be. They will torture us for eternity. The only way is to kill them all and wipe them out. Today, I killed common people emperor ancestor, but the common people's emperor region still exists. I already have the ability to kill the creator god. Next, no matter what they create, I will be a problem. I, Long Chen, will slay them one by one under my sword. I will destroy their souls and bodies and they will never be able to reincarnate. As for how cruel and heartless they are, how many people died because of the war, I, Long Chen, will save them all. How can we lower our heads to the demons in this vast world and billions of lives? Even if a lot of people died, it would be their fault, not ours. No matter what everyone decides, do you want to be a coward and live without purpose? Or do you want to be hot-blooded and kill the demons and demons? I, Long Chen, will not change. Today, I will show my attitude once more. No matter how evil they are, I will not rest until all of you are dead. Every life of the common people is a sin on your body. One day, all of you will die." Such a passionate and impassioned voice was like a storm that swept through the myriad worlds like the edge of a blade. Hot blood, lofty aspirations, and icy-cold killing intent simply blew onto every single living being, allowing them to truly experience Long Chen's current thoughts. Before, it was fear and sadness. Now that the common people's emperor ancestor was killed, the myriad worlds didn't suffer much damage. Long Chen was the protector, so how could they blame all these deaths on him? Anyone with a conscience would know that the Chaos Whole Ancestor and the others were the tumors of the myriad worlds, evil demons. They used the lives of all living beings to threaten Long Chen and the others. This was what they deserved. What was more precious was that the myriad worlds were suppressing Long Chen, but he was able to go against the pressure and kill the common people's emperor ancestor. Long Chen was still Long Chen. The demons and gods of the myriad worlds couldn't help but feel guilty. They were really frightened by him. Now that their hearts were clear, they couldn't help but tear up. I, the Chaos Ancestral God, am willing to follow Long Chen and hunt down the remaining 5 ruthless and shameless fellows who have destroyed the peace of the myriad worlds. I will uphold justice and restore peace to the myriad worlds. I, the Primordial Chaos Ancestor God. The 11 Ancestor Gods all used this chance to boost morale for Long Chen. Today, he killed the common people's emperor ancestor and said such words. This changed the fighting spirit of the myriad worlds. In the hearts of everyone, the remaining 5 origin ancestral gods of the 4th era had simply transformed from overbearing and terrifying devils into rats that everyone cursed at the mention of. The fighting spirit of the myriad worlds wasn't something useless. However, the hot-bloodedness, fighting spirit, and passion of trillions of living beings were all concentrated under a single thought. One could well imagine how intense it was. The entire 10,000 worlds were a single entity. Their wills were unified and concentrated on the core of Long Chen. Even Long Chen himself had an unbelievable mental strength. Long Chen took the risk out of desperation, which was why he had such an outcome. However, up until now, the common people's emperor ancestor had died and the other party still hadn't responded. Long Chen first sealed the common people's emperor pagoda and threw it into the ruins of time. When we return to the Death Rain, they will probably fly into a rage and attack us directly to show us who we are. Long Chen opened the Death Rain Dragon Gate and entered. All the Death Rain Dragon Gate opened up before his eyes. Pangu Continent. Long Chen's prediction was right. At this moment, the 5 ancestor gods were going to attack Long Chen's newly established prestige. After all, Long Chen didn't do as they said. Under such circumstances, they could only destroy the world. And that world was Pangu Continent. To be honest, Long Chen had focused on the more important and populous worlds, including the Death Rain Dragon Gate. Among them, the 4th era was not so easy to break, so their biggest target was the 5th era. Pangu and Long Chen had a good relationship, so the Pangu Continent they chose was basically Long Chen's priority. When he heard that they had appeared on Pangu Continent, Long Chen rushed out without a word. The group of ancestor gods was mighty and murderous. Chapter 36-43. Pangu Continent. Perhaps he had expected it, or perhaps it was the laws of time and fate. Long Chen had locked onto this place he was very familiar with in advance. After all, this was a place chosen by the other party in a fit of rage, so there would be 2 subconscious choices. The first was that it should be a world of roughly the same level as the ancestral Kuan realm they attacked before, or else it wouldn't be enough to vent their hatred. Second, they would choose a world that Long Chen was close to. That way, they would bring pain and retaliation to Long Chen. Pangu Continent was the most likely place to match these 2 subconscious thoughts. It just so happened that the other party had chosen this place. So this time, Long Chen and the others appeared on Pangu Continent in the shortest time possible. It was so fast that when they arrived, Pangu Continent had not been destroyed. This time, it was Divine Ancestor Kitagarbha. Sacred Ancestor Kitagarbha stood at the forefront of the team of 5. He would destroy Pangu Continent. As for the ancestors of past and future, they had already prepared a way to escape. Basically, as soon as Sacred Ancestor Kitagarbha made his move, they would leave immediately. Normally speaking, when Long Chen and the others arrived, they would have already disappeared. But this time, they didn't expect that Long Chen and the others would come so quickly, as if they had predicted that they would appear in this world. Great timing. When they came out of the Death Realm Dragon Gate, the 13 of them were ready to strike. As soon as they came out, they were faced with the swords of living swords conjured by Sacred Ancestor Kitagarbha's Wheel of Living, which was attacking the 8 locations of Pangu Continent. In this situation, the only thing they could do was use their world source energy to block the life roulette. This was the fastest way. Among them, Long Chen was in the center. World Motionless Curse. He and Lingxi worked together to lock onto the 2 swords in the middle. Originally, Long Chen was prepared to lock down all the world essence. However, in such a hurry, he was unable to intercept so many. As for the others, they would be intercepted by the other ancestral gods. Under such circumstances, It would be fine as long as they did not damage Pangu continent. Although Long Chen could bring the barbarians back to life, it would be a great loss if he could not rebuild Pangu continent in a short period of time. At the critical moment, Long Chen's eyes were bloodshot as he locked onto the two swords. Lingxi's world's immovable spell was very fast. When divine ancestor Kitagarbha discovered them and hurriedly withdrew the origin of the world, Lingxi had frozen them in a short time. All it took was an instant. At this moment, sacred ancestor Pudu had withdrawn the rest of the world's essence, which did not hurt Pangu continent. However, two divine swords were hovering in midair. The power of the past and future ancestor instantly latched onto these two swords, wanting to pull them away at the same time. At this moment, Long Chen's slaughter pierce made a clean cut. Kacha! Soul-devouring blood spirit. This was the second time. The blood spirit devourer was swift and violent. In that instant, the blood-red long sword that was burning with blood fog was like a ferocious beast biting open the two sattva swords, piercing in and causing the two swords to collide. Die! Of course, Long Chen knew that sacred ancestor Kitagarbha's essence of hunger had 8 parts, so he would not really die. But even so, it would still cause a great shock to the other side. What he needed to do now was to scare them. With Lingxi's help, it was not difficult to deal with the two swords. The devouring of the ancestral souls this time was even easier than the last time. A quarter of the ancestral souls withered rapidly under Long Chen's blood swords. Because they had lost the ancestral souls and control, the past and future ancestors could not take them away. Long Chen's trick was simply turning ownerless things into ownerless things. Since they were ownerless things, it was very easy for him to throw them into the ruin of time. Ah! The miserable screams of the mortal ancestor echoed in the starry sky. At the same time, the 5 ancestor gods disappeared in front of Long Chen and the others. They moved too fast and fled in an instant. Fortunately, Long Chen acted quickly and cooperated with Lingxi. Otherwise, they would have escaped safely again. Given the extent of their entanglement, they would definitely go and destroy other worlds again until Long Chen was subdued and shocked all the worlds. But this time, Long Chen was sure that he had taught sacred ancestor Kitagarbha a lifelong lesson. Sacred ancestor Kitagarbha was definitely not as capable as the ancestral god of the 4th era. His tragedy would definitely shock them even more. To put it bluntly, Long Chen had gotten rid of one of his opponents once again. Only the great wizard ancestor of the chaotic cave and the other 3 great wizard ancestors still had some strength left. Sacred ancestor Kitagarbha, you've already lost half of your life. Let's see if you still have the courage and strength to help the evildoer again. Long Chen's laughter once again spread throughout all the worlds. Let me tell you, we're not afraid of which world you destroy. We'll fight you to the end. I'd like to see if you can destroy more worlds in the end, or if I can kill more ancestor gods of the 4th era. Remember, now that Ancestor Mortal People Emperor and Sacred Ancestor Kitagarbha can't hold on any longer, who will be next? Will it be you? Black Hole Ancestral Wizard. Long Chen's arrogant and domineering voice swept across all the worlds like a volcanic torrent. When Ancestor Mortal People Emperor died, all living beings were naturally worried about the revenge of these 5. Sure enough, they took action. But soon the result was out. But to their surprise, it was not that they had destroyed Pangu continent. Pangu continent was safe and sound, but sacred ancestor Kitagarbha seemed to have suffered a great loss. According to Long Chen's words, he might not even be qualified to fight in the future. Excitement! This was a great victory. He had won a series of victories and shocked his opponents. When they learned of this news, cheers and howls rang out in all the worlds. Long Chen had made them even more fanatical. Thanks to so many living beings, Long Chen's strength had increased and his recovery was faster. It seemed that if he wanted to form the 5th world essence in the other 3 aspects, it would also be extremely fast. This was something that Black Hole Ancestral Wizard and the others could not imagine. The power of all living beings in all the worlds was extremely terrifying. After today's battle, Long Chen had gained unprecedented support from all the worlds. And after this setback, his opponents no longer made a sound, and it was impossible for them to be as arrogant and domineering as before. After sacred ancestor Kitagarbha was injured, they must have suffered a great blow and disappeared. Obviously, only 4 of them could participate in the battle. Especially this time, it was supposed to be a sneak attack, but it was still discovered by Long Chen and the others. This made them understand that it seemed that the previous method of sneak attacks to destroy the world was no longer feasible. This made them calm down. Sure enough, it was just as Long Chen expected. This time, they did not make any movements and went into hiding. Of course, they had to be careful at all times. This did not rule out the possibility of another sneak attack. After all, they had done a lot of shameless things. Now, all the worlds were boiling, as if divine light was shining across them. Long Chen waited for a while, but there was no response from the other side. Obviously, they wouldn't be carrying out such activities in the near future. Time was pressing. Now that he had the support of all living beings in all the worlds, it was a good fortune for Long Chen. The power of faith had caused the origin power of his world to surge. This was a great opportunity. An opportunity for him to climb a higher mountain. Everyone, I'll leave all the worlds to you now. I'm going back to the Tower of Time. Long Chen's intuition told him that if he wanted to truly win this battle, the most important thing was still himself, just like today. Just like today, he felt that the blood spirit soul devourer was not enough, especially the black hole ancestral wizard, who seemed to have become a different person with too many secrets. Only when he was infinitely strong would he feel safe. Therefore, he decided to return. When he returned to the 4th floor of the Tower of Time, he became quiet and entered a calm state. The future was promising. In the depths of the endless universe, sacred ancestor Kitagarbya's face was pale, and his body was twitching as he lay in the void. His eyes were wide open, and he looked at the crowd with difficulty. His voice was hoarse. He wanted to speak, but it was difficult. 1/4 of his ancestral soul has been destroyed, and so has the origin of the world. Therefore, his strength is not as good as before, and his incomplete ancestral soul will greatly affect his state. Now, he can't even defeat the ancestral god of the 5th era, Tao Ancestor Ji Yuan said. He's already a burden. He might as well be destroyed. At the same time, he can destroy the all-living beings' immortal realm as a counterattack for Long Chen. Blood Demon Ancestor said. Lunatic received a task at the last minute. In fact, the new book had not been released yet, and the game was going to be developed at the same time. Therefore, Lunatic had a task to sort out the outline, characters, and other details of the new book and submit them to the game company. Therefore, since he could not finish the 2 chapters he owed yesterday, he would put them off until the day after tomorrow. It would be best if he could finish the task the day after tomorrow. I've never had a problem with updating. Brothers, don't worry. As an author, it was always the most difficult time for him to replace the old with the new. He needed a large number of manuscripts to promote his new book. I hope you can understand. Recently, Lunatic has been working very hard, but for the sake of his big dream and for the sake of everyone's enjoyment, there's still room for improvement. Chapter 3644. You can't kill me. Sacred Ancestor Karma immediately panicked when he heard this. No matter how muddle-headed he was, he had to wake up. He hadn't expected to fall to such a state. Of course, compared to the common people ancestor, his current situation was still considered good. The common people ancestor had lost his life. Long Chen's soul-devouring blood spirit terrified Sacred Ancestor Karma. Don't worry. The Chaos Cave ancestor glanced at him indifferently, causing Sacred Ancestor Karma to relax slightly. Although his condition wasn't as good as before, at least he was still alive. I will definitely take back my world origin from Long Chen. Sacred Ancestor Karma said. What's the use of taking it back? Your ancestral soul is already gone, Epic Origin Tao Ancestor said. This caused Sacred Ancestor Karma to shut his mouth. No matter how unwilling he was to believe it, it was clear that from today onward, he would be a cripple of this team. Come into my divine kingdom, said the Chaos Cave ancestor. If we want to move, you won't be able to keep up. Okay. Sacred Ancestor Karma hesitated for a moment, but he still entered the dark and terrifying world of the Chaos Cave ancestor's divine nation. It was dark and full of the fear of the unknown. After divine ancestor Karma disappeared, the remaining 3 surrounded Chaos Hole Shaman Progenitor. Epic Origin Tao Ancestor asked, now that something like this has happened, our plan has been greatly ruined. They're watching us so closely. It seems like they have a way to know our target in advance. Long Chen also has a law that allows him to kill creator ancestral gods. If we continue with our previous plan, it won't be effective. The Chaos Cave ancestor frowned but didn't say anything. The Blood Fiend ancestor said, if we don't show our trump cards, then some of us will follow in the footsteps of karma. I think that forcing Long Chen to commit suicide is the same as sacred ancestor karmas. The plan to devour the souls of all living beings is no longer effective. Now that we're not necessarily weaker than them, why don't we just have an ultimate battle? We can fight while strengthening the soul-devouring beast. Epic Origin Dao ancestor basically thought the same. Finally, the Chaos Whole Magus ancestor said, now is not the time to carry out this final plan. Right now, our strength is on the same level as theirs. We don't have absolute confidence in winning. We only have one chance, so let's wait until we have the most confidence before making our move. Now, I need to recover my strength. Even without the souls of all living beings, the soul-devouring beast can still grow. Epic Time Dao ancestor asked respectfully, how long will it take for you to recover to the point where you can crush them? One had to know that Long Chen was also recovering and strengthening. I'm just afraid that the longer we delay, the faster and stronger he will be than us. The Chaos Cave Shaman ancestor sneered and said, I'm different from him. My clan will recover much faster than them. In another 2 months, I am confident that I can lead you to a full-scale war with them and annihilate them. The key to unlocking the seal lies in Long Chen. 2 months. The three of them thought about it carefully. Although Long Chen had the Tower of Time, it was impossible for him to reach the height that the Chaos Cave Shaman ancestor could reach in 2 months. Moreover, they did not know about the soul-devouring beast at all. Moreover, the soul-devouring beast would restrict them. When the time came, if they chose to fight a full-scale war, they would have to worry about the lives of all living beings. Then they would have a great chance of winning. Then, we'll wait for another 2 months. At that time, we'll make sure none of them are left. As long as we get the key and let them appear, haha, the myriad worlds will really disappear completely. Now, it can be considered the true end of the battle before the epic. It's time to decide the victor. In the myriad of worlds, it seemed that his opponents had disappeared without a trace, and he could no longer find them. The good thing was that no world would suffer anymore. If Long Chen had not ignored the depression of all living beings and killed the Emperor Ancestor, the myriad worlds would definitely not have such peace now. It was also because of this that all living beings in the myriad worlds believed in Long Chen so much. To Long Chen, all living beings wanted him to be strong. That feeling was something that no one other than him could understand. Naturally, he understood that the other party did not appear from now on because they were preparing for an even greater disaster. That might be the time for the ultimate battle. Long Chen deeply understood that he still needed to be stronger to truly save the myriad worlds. Currently, the myriad realms had reached the most dangerous period of time in an era. There were 11 fourth-era ancestor gods in the myriad worlds, and Lingxi and the others were helping. Searching and guarding. Long Chen focused on cultivating. His world origin power, even in the 4th level of the Tower of Time, was still expanding at a terrifying speed. Although it had reached its current level, the growth rate of the world origin had completely surpassed the past. That was the willpower of all living beings. Not only the living beings of the Dragon Sacrifice continent, but all the living beings of the myriad worlds. Moreover, it was unprecedented cohesion. Even the living beings of the past, future, epic Dao domain, and other worlds were believing in Long Chen. It was also because of this that unexpectedly, Long Chen's speed of condensing the 5th world origin of life, the 5th world origin of karma, and the 5th world origin of destiny far exceeded the speed of condensing the time origin of the world origin of time, and also the speed of condensing the 5th world origin of massacre origin. And the origin of the world origin of massacre only took 200 years, which was only 10 days of the myriad worlds. The time for the 5th world origin of life was 8 days. Without the pressure of the myriad worlds and the suppression of the common people Emperor Ancestor, it was still completed in 8 days. In the Tower of Time it was only 200 years. The 5th world origin of karma was completed in 6 days. The 5th world origin of destiny was even faster, completed in 4 days. The 4th level of the Tower of Time took about 100 years. A total of 18 days, less than a month. At this point, Long Chen could be considered to have fully reached the 5th era's ancestral god realm. There were a total of 25 world origins. In terms of numbers, there was no one who had ever done it before, and no one would ever be able to do it again. In terms of rules and combat strength, he had basically reached a whole new world. Now, facing the 4th era ancestor god, he estimated that he should be able to reach the level of crushing the other party. Maybe, my current strength is almost equivalent to the number 1 in the myriad worlds? Of course, it was just a guess. But at the very least, defeating Ling Shi should not be a problem. At the very least, he could be considered one of the strongest 4th era ancestral gods. He was on par with the Chaos ancestral god, Destiny ancestral star, and past and future ancestral gods. Of course, this was all his own estimation, and there was no actual verification. Then let's verify it. In the vast 4th level of the Tower of Time, Long Chen revealed a smile. His mood was a little relaxed, but also a little expectant. He believed that his enemies would not believe that he could make such progress in a short 18 days. All of this was mostly due to the support of the living beings of the myriad worlds. They were the ones who allowed Long Chen to have such combat strength. Everyone, come to the Death Realm first. Long Chen summoned the 4th era ancestor gods to the Death Realm. In fact, more than 10,000 ancestor gods of the myriad worlds were here. They were on tenterhooks all day long, worried that their world would be destroyed by the Chaos Cave ancestor and the others. When the primal Chaos ancestor god and the others arrived, Long Chen suddenly appeared in front of them. Before this, they were still guessing what had happened when Long Chen looked for them in just over 10 days. In these 10 days, they kept a close watch on the myriad worlds, but the other party did not appear again. Chen. Ling Shi saw the changes in him. Xueqi. These days she was too tense and tired. Long Chen, have you reached the 5th era ancestor god realm? Primordial War ancestor asked in surprise. In fact, they could clearly feel the changes in Long Chen. Obviously, he had reached a whole new realm. However, wasn't this too fast? According to the normal speed, it would take at least half a year, which was equivalent to 5,000 years on the 4th level of the Tower of Time. After all, the previous breakthrough in slaughter was because of the huge pressure, and that depended on the timing. That's right. Apart from reaching the 5th era ancestor god realm, I have other good news to tell everyone. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.